just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
For the record, because you're using the virtual background.
Yes.
It amuses me whenever you lean just a little bit too far back and you suddenly become more spectral.
Yes. I'm in and out of the I'm in and out of the scene.
Hello, everyone. To those of you watching live or listening after the fact, we're very grateful to have you here. I'm Robert Winfree. That is Mark Radulich.
Can I
the
tell
incredible
you?
shrinking man.
Oh, yeah. Can I tell you, this past week leading into The Bad Guys, I re-aired our you came on a long road to ruin during one of Sean's hiatuses to do Madagascar, and then we re-aired the Kung Fu Panda 3, How to Train Your Dragon 2. But in addition to that, I've done a couple of more re-airs recently. Deepwater Horizon, Inferno, the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I'll tell you, it's made me a little misty-eyed for a couple of different reasons. Part of it is just listening back to our old shows. Like, we have this kind of down pat now. The only time there's even really a wrench in the works is if somebody else comes on, we have to sort of adjust to the new person, like with Amber when she came on for Secrets of Dumbledore. But especially when it's just
to all of you people who want to come on the show, we don't want you.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Understand the sarcasm there, people. We do deeply love and appreciate our guests.
So anyway,
did I turn into the diplomatic one?
Well, no, it's different when it's just me and you.
That's true.
Even this past year, like if you think about the couple of ones that we've done with this person or that person, or for that long stretch that Alexis was on, versus when you and I are just sitting there talking about, Munich, the Edge of War, and how natural of a conversation that was. Like, that was almost out of pattern for us. But you and I have such good rapport now after doing this for so long. We didn't need to do that. We have to be more structured when other people come on, was the point that I was making.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about listening back to those shows. Two things occurred to me. One, how much I was going to the drive-in with my family back then. And I had to talk to Melissa about that. I was like, Jesus Christ, we used to do stuff as a family. What happened to us? Which is something we are trying to correct now. When I realized it after hearing like successive reviews in a row of, I saw this with my kids, and I saw this with my kids, and I saw this with my kids.
And I missed this part of the movie because I was dealing with my children fighting in the back seat.
Right. The other thing is, it's fun to listen how the show evolved over the years. Like, go back to the 2014 ones where we did The Amazing Spider-Man and Maleficent, and it was just we were just like people talking. We didn't have a format. It was, what did you think of the movie? There's reviews that we've done where I start talking about Rotten Tomatoes and money stuff in the first 10 minutes of the show. Like, we would just talk.
I kind of, one of the things I love about this show is, especially if you take the long view, like, we are the editorial process in real time. Like, we try stuff, and okay, that kind of works, and maybe this is something we can do, and let's see how we refine it.
Yeah.
And all the way leading up until to the smooth clockwork efficiency that we have today.
Yeah, it's been fun. I kind of miss the Wild West days. Like, I wouldn't trade it. I like what we're doing now, because it does open us up to a little bit more deep dive analysis and film discussion, the kind of stuff that I really enjoy. Whereas I go look at some of those shows and they were so freeform, we were just sort of reacting to things. Also, our friendship, if I may say, has grown over time. So you go back and listen to the early shows, and there's a lot of flirting between me and you. There's a lot of us kind of poking at each other.
That's one way to put it.
It is what it is. But there was definitely a lot of poking at each other. I didn't always get you, and so like I would say stuff, and you would react away, and I'd be like, "What the hell?" And so and because it was new, I'd be like, "Oh, that's fun. I'm gonna poke him now." And you were getting used to me, and you were just like, your line from last week of "Why are you the way you are?" There's a lot of that back then. Just like you legitimately befuddled by me, and so it's just I wanted to. We're talking about the Northman tonight. I don't know how long this is even going to take to do. I'm happy for you because this is one of those rare instances where we get to talk about an adult film, and I don't mean adult pornographic. I mean adult, like not for children.
Yeah, there's been the last like 2 years of film release. I think if you go back and you start looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I have talked on occasion about how much I kind of hate the. I lament the loss of the middle ground of like big budget like blockbuster films.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays everything is some part of a connected universe. It's some sequel, prequel, spin-off, fourth iteration.
Did you see the picture of the tweet that I sent out today?
That
like about a dozen or so summer releases are remakes, sequels, or whatever.
Yep.
Not a unknown property in the bunch.
Yeah, I'm starting to become more and more amenable or accepting of the notion that we're living in a post-creativity world. Again, I'm not all the way there. There's plenty of other people who feel much more strongly about this than I do, but I can see their point of view. But again, you and I have kind of lamented the loss of, again, the middle ground of filmmaking. I mean, if I might be so bold, if we were to go back in time to the 90s, late 90s, the Michael Bay films, and I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean, Michael Bay would have an idea, or he would, he would find a script he wanted to do. And it wouldn't be again, it's not a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's a standalone property. It's accessible to slightly, it's not something you want to take your small children to necessarily, but it's something that, younger audiences can gain enjoyment out of.
It was reflected of the golden age of movie making where they just made movies and nobody was worried about intellectual property. They just wanted to make stories that the average person could go and lose themselves in for an hour or two.
And the long and the short of that, to bring it back around to the original point, the last like 2-ish years, there's been a very, very stark divide between movies for children and movies not for children. And the vast majority of big releases are for children. And if you feel insulted by that, please don't. I like stuff that's made for kids on occasion. Like that, you can still find value in it. You can still find entertainment. You can occasionally find deeper meaning. Stuff that's made for children is not the worst thing in the world.
We gave a glowing review of Sonic.
Yeah, like that's very clearly a kid's movie.
Right.
But it's so much of what comes out these days. It's so much like it's something like, again, if you were to go down like all films released in a year, how many of them are for children? It's probably a minority, believe it or not, if we go by total releases, right? Like everything released in the calendar year. But how about everything that gets a wide release? How about everything that actually sees a degree of financial success?
Yeah.
Like look, I'm going to say this again, and I'll say it again in a couple of weeks when we talk about Doctor Strange. The MCU movies are made for children. Now, you grown man out there can still enjoy them, and I'm not going to insult you for that. But understand what's going on.
They're made for general audiences. When you and I bat that phrase around. They're made for children, but let's be a little bit more specific. They are made for general audiences that include children and passive film watchers. So it is pejorative when we say it's made for children. We're calling the collective masses of people who watch films passively children. which I think you and I can do that, and we can kind of snicker about it. But to be fair to people and to want them to want to listen to us talk, general audiences would be the most appropriate term.
Well, again, part of the let me couch this in a couple of different ways. Different points in the history of the MCU, to be very specific, have been aimed at different demographics.
Sure.
I think Phase 1 and Phase 2 were very clearly aimed at general audiences. To your point, like we're gonna get the hardcore fans happy because they're gonna see something they have a deep attachment to, and we're gonna make these broad stories. They're going to be very entertaining, and we will build our audience up. Once you get towards the end of the Infinity Saga, I would very much argue that these are now not just general audience movies. See, for me, this is kind of a ratings thing, believe it or not. A general audience film is something you can take, or the target demographic is, say, 10 to 27, right? This is the general audience demographic. Older than that can go see it. Younger than that will go see it. But that's the general swath of people. Then you get to the point where you start trying to. The problem is when you start trying to lower the lower end of the age demographic you're appealing to, you can't increase the upper end.
Yeah,
this is not. If you're trying to appeal to this group of people, and you want to include this group of people down here, this has to come down. You can't just expand them.
What you're talking about, without maybe even realizing you're talking about it, is there's the people that want to make the films, and now you're talking 10 to 30. But then there's the corporate people that want to sell the toys, and they need that demographic to hit a little bit lower. They need the 8-year-olds.
Yeah, they need the 8-year-olds.
5 to 8, yeah. You know, the 12-inch dolls that they sell in the stores now, they need to sell those, and it's only 5 to 8-year-olds that are going to play with them, possibly a little younger, but I figure when I was buying those for Jonas and Lily, it was 4 to 7-ish.
Yeah, and I understand the reality of this, and I understand. Look, if you're doing something like in the MCU, you absolutely need to be able to properly get your value out of every revenue stream you possibly can. I get this. I don't even object to it in some kind of weird way. This is not me going boo capitalism. I like capitalism.
Sure.
My issue tends to be that that's now everything.
Yeah.
And
if you're wondering why are we talking about this, because this relates to the movie that we're talking about tonight.
It really does. I trust you'll bear with us for a second here. I mean, even the Batman, right? You may not be comfortable taking your 5-year-old to see the Batman, but I would wager you'd be fine with an 8-year-old.
Sure, I brought an 8-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, again, you go younger than that, and they just can't do the 3-hour runtime. I mean, I could barely do the 3-hour runtime on that thing, but not to revisit that discussion of that movie. But this was, and look, you and Andrew, and even, I mean, I didn't enjoy the movie, but I had positive things to say about its film craft.
Yeah.
But that movie tried so hard to do to walk an impossible line.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be a dark, gritty, intense, interesting movie and appeal to 8-year-olds.
Right.
You can't do it. And
I remember Jonas's reaction. He was like, "Did you like that?" Meanwhile, I'm like vibrating and crying.
You are sobbing with joy. Like, this was better than losing my virginity.
Yeah, I was like, this is the short of the children being born. This was the happiest moment of my life at that point. And my son's like, "But why?" Today in the car, I took him to go see The Bad Guys, and on the ride home, he listens to all of our shows, and he was like,
Your son, I hope. I sincerely hope you have already started a therapy account at the bank for your son.
Well, it's so funny because he goes, so I listened to the Morbius review. That's how he starts this conversation. He goes, I listened to your Morbius review. You guys sound like you hated it. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong.
I did.
And he was like, and he goes, I thought it was the best thing ever. And I'm like, you're allowed to. You're 8.
Good for you.
Yeah, and there was a discussion, and the reason why I brought this up is Jonas, you're allowed to like things that people don't like, and you're allowed to hate things that people do like. It's okay to have discourse. It's not okay to force people to like things you do, or vice versa. But you are absolutely allowed to
try really hard not to insult people for their differing opinions about entertainment media. Again, that's one of those things I had to learn the hard way in some respects, because our earlier shows, like to bring
oh my God, yeah. I'm glad you said it, or I would have.
I can admit that I was horribly insulting to. Boy, you brain dead, pain eating morons.
Yep, a lot of that. Just the fights that we would get into, because like I would say, like, yeah, it was fine. It was the kind of things I continue to say. But at that time, you were like, no, it's garbage, and I'm going to bang my shoe on this table and let you all know it. To finish up the thing with Jonas, he was like, I loved Morbius. I don't understand what you guys hated about it. And I was like, Jonas, you got to understand, you're an 8-year-old boy. You're going to respond to things like an 8-year-old child. You don't have the intellectual capacity to deconstruct film the way that a 45-year-old man does. And so you're going to have a different opinion on it. And I'm glad it appealed to you. I love the fact that I take you to the movies and it brings you joy and it brings us closer together. But boy, are we not going to like the same things always. You're not me and I'm not you. And he was like, all right, I get that, I guess. It's just, I wish you liked more of the things that I do. And I'm like, boy, so does Twitter. You know,
give it another few years.
Well, not only that, but I mean, like, how much of just focusing on the nerd culture, how much of people out there want the validation of other people liking what they like and get mad when it doesn't happen?
I may have posited my theory about this before on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I have a rough idea about why nerds are so self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that might go away with enough time, like over a long enough time period.
Mm-hmm.
But here's kind of my thought about this, and I'll be brief, and then we'll get into the movie.
Yep.
Anytime you come up liking something that is not popular, and let me be very, very clear about this.
Mm-hmm.
This does not have to be the stereotypical geek thing. If you love football and you go to school and you go to a school full of nerds, like very intellectual people, you will be the outsider.
Right.
You will be the person mocked. You will be the person made fun of. And now, again, if we kind of aggregate this out, more often than not, it's people who like comic books or certain cartoons or anime. And, you know, the market's just not that big. So you like what you like, and then there's a bunch of other people who kind of piss on it. And you get very defensive about this. This becomes your reaction. Whatever it is, whatever it happens to be. Again, I don't care what it is. If your formative years are spent on the defensive about the thing you like, this becomes your default even when you meet someone who likes the same thing you like. Imagine, for a moment, Mark, if you will, since I don't mind putting the shoe on the other foot here, you, as a young man, love American football.
Yep.
It is your favorite sport. You know the teams, you know statistics, you are up to date on everything. You are also the only person that you're aware of in your school who does. Everyone else is more into intellectual or philosophical pursuits, and whatever it happens to be. So you don't have a lot of friends,
right,
that share this interest. And because you like American football, you have a favorite team. For the sake of argument, let's say you like the New England Patriots.
How about I'm from New York? Let's go with the Jets.
No one likes the Jets, Mark.
Giants.
I don't even think anyone likes the Giants.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Okay, Giants. And you like the Giants. They're your team, and you finally meet someone else who is a football fan.
Mm-hmm.
And you're both a little bit furtive about this because maybe you go to the same high school. Like, oh, you like football. Well, that's great. I like football. And you start to bond. Well, inevitably, the question arises, so who's your favorite team? And you say, well, I like the New York Giants. And the other person says, well, I like the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, rather than simply share your the fact that you like so many of the same things, you now get into a fight because you are both coded to be defensive about this. How could you like X? You should like Y. How could you support the Eagles? They suck, and their stadium's a hellhole, and their fans hucked batteries and snowballs at Santa Claus. And well, then there's the Giants, and you guys had Eli Manning as your quarterback for how many years? And boy, you get the lesser Manning. Doesn't that say a whole hell of a lot about your organization? And so on and so forth. And it's very easy to do this with comic books as well. Boy, you sure do love Spider-Man, right? He's your favorite hero. And you meet someone, and their favorite hero is Batman.
Right.
And now what are we doing? We're arguing again, because this is what we've been designed to do. You're so used to defending what you love from people who don't love the same thing. When you meet someone who loves the same general thing with a few differences, you don't celebrate the differences. You attack. You don't celebrate the similarities. You attack the differences, because that's kind of what you're coded to do. Again, I think over a long enough timeline, this will sort itself out. But that's kind of my rough take on why there's so much contention and so much stupid tribalism over things that have no bearing on anything. Yeah, all you idiots out there clamoring for one professional wrestling company or another, I'm looking at you too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's funny you mentioned. I don't want to get off on a tangent about this, but I think about like how it took no time at all for people to declare themselves stalwart soldiers in the WWE and AEW armies.
I know, right?
And it was like, really? Because when you think about the AEW thing, this isn't a content issue. This is more of how quickly we're willing to throw ourselves into a cult.
Yeah.
Because AEW shows up, and a month later, you have diehard fans. How do you have a diehard fan of something that's only been in existence for a month?
And given how AEW started, it has only run 4 shows.
Right. And it's like, but people will murder you if you say anything bad about AEW. And it's like, how it got that much loyalty that quickly. I mean, and there's a discussion to be had about, well, the young
there's a lot of antipathy
Ring of Honor,
well, there's a lot of antipathy towards the WWE for some very good reasons.
Right.
But I'm with you.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, the need to belong has now driven people past the point of embedding within cult reason, embedding within culture, and gone right to cultism. Yeah, and that's the scariest part of living in today's world right now, is how desperately people want to be in a cult. Like, that is a conversation in and of itself.
We have become so atomized and so isolated from each other, and I don't think 5 years ago, no one fully appreciated this. But the ability to find like-minded people very easily wound up isolating us from people in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that cognitive dissonance is causing some very, very dangerous habits to form in a lot of people.
Which brings us to the Northman.
It really does, because throwing yourself into a desire for self-destructive revenge is very similar. You laugh, but there's a lot of similar pathology there.
No, I'm with you. Honestly, we started with, gosh, I miss us, Robert. I miss our show. I miss the show we used to do. I miss our relationship in the beginning when we had that NRE going on, that new relationship energy. And here we are, gosh, like, you realize we've been doing the show almost as long as I've been married. I got married in 2009. I think I did the original iteration of this with Jeff in whatever year Man of Steel came out. What was that, 2012, 2013?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but sure.
And then Amazing Spider-Man was 2014, if I remember correctly, and that's when we started this.
I think we started this show proper, like, because originally it was just a couple of like debates, somewhat moderated by me. Like,
no. I go back and listen to that show. It was one. It was me and Pat fighting about Spider-Man and you moderating. And then it was like, this was fun. Hey, anyone want to talk about Maleficent? And we were off and running after that.
Yeah. Again, 14 and 15, we didn't keep a rigorous schedule.
No.
Would be the correct way to phrase that. We were like 6.
I was only focusing on the summer at that point.
Yeah, we did like, I don't know, maybe what would it average out to one show a month? Like we maybe did 12 to 14 shows a year.
Yeah, we would go hot and heavy between May and about mid-August, because we used to also do an end of summer show, if you remember.
Yeah, and then
we do a couple around Christmas.
Once we get to like halfway through 16,
Mm-hmm.
and the start, I blame the MCU for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because they started releasing the Avengers movies earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier.
It was two things. It was because if you'll remember, initially there wasn't a TV podcast either.
No.
We started, essentially it was like, this week we're doing Civil War. Next week we're doing Daredevil because of Netflix shows.
Yeah.
And then we started doing so much television, I had to create a whole separate format. But like I said, it was just like, oh, we're just going to talk about the big summer shows. And the summer got bigger and bigger, and it started bleeding into, it was bleeding into.
They started releasing big movies at least once a month.
Yeah, it was in March. I think I want to say like Deadpool and Logan were kind of the start of that, where it was like the summer was bleeding one way into March, and it was bleeding the other way into
November.
Into November. Yeah, it was almost impossible to kind of.
At which point, all we could do was throw up our hands and go, "Well, okay, here we go."
Right, and then I think probably 2017 is when we started to go weekly.
Yeah.
I know there was a period where because financially I just couldn't afford to go to the movies at one point. And that might have been 2017, because I think that was the year we did Logan, where it was like, I'm taking off until Logan comes out.
Yeah.
But then I want to say from Logan all the way to now, we've gone almost every single week. We've done something. And then with the pandemic, we started incorporating streaming movies.
Yep.
It's so funny. I'm just go into the plot synopsis or the introduction of the movie and the plot synopsis when I'm done with this. But at the same time, it is so easy right now to go 7 days a week with this. Like if we want,
could be.
If we just wanted to talk, if we wanted to be like the critically acclaimed guys and just talk about all the movies released in a single week, but I wanted to continue the format that we're doing it now, where it's either we do 2 shows, 1 show, or 3 shows, depending on how we're talking about them, and are they in theaters or are they streaming? Is there money or isn't there? I could conceivably do 3 and 4 just movie podcast a week. Then you throw TV in there. Like before you even get to sports or music, we could just be weekly doing up to 6 or 7 TV and movie podcasts per week with the amount of content that's out there. And at the same time, I'm cutting shows. Like I'm like cutting back. I'm trying to cut this down to maybe 2 or 3 shows a week minimum, like period. But doing that, boy, is there a lot of things we're not talking about for that, because of that. And it's just like, I bring it up because in the natural course of how this evolved with an absence of anything else to do in my life at the time, all I did was want to talk about the movies that are out there. And then suddenly I'm doing this 7 days a week. Suddenly I'm doing this 7 days a week and I'm doing 2 shows in a day. Suddenly I'm doing this 7 days a week and I'm doing 3 shows in a day. And I'm keeping Robert up, till midnight talking about, Mank. And and we're putting suits on and we're like in costumes and shit. Which, by the way, I'm gonna need you to get a birthday hat, like a party hat for June 2nd when we talk about we own this city. That's my birthday.
I know.
All right, The Northman, go.
I will come up with something to do for you.
Sounds good.
So, The Northman, directed by Robert Eggers, who is rapidly becoming a favorite of mine. This is an epic historical action drama. I would add into that it's a little bit surrealistic.
One sec. I got to go AFK for just a second, okay?
I will go through this. So it starts in AD 895, where we're introduced to our protagonist, the Prince Amleth. His father, Ethan Hawke. He has a name, but I'm going to butcher a bunch of these names anyway. I just don't want to try with that. His father returns. He brings with him his, it says brother Fjolnir, but the way Fjolnir is described, I imagine there's some, they're like half brothers rather than full. So we're introduced to, again, the young prince, the brother. We meet the Ethan Hawke's wife for this. That's Nicole Kidman, who I would destroy that name too. I'm not going to try. She's going to be Nicole Kidman. He comes back and he's ready to try and kind of get his son to start growing up a little bit. Weird ritual. As the father and son are leaving said weird ritual, they're attacked by Fjolnir and his men. They kill Ethan Hawke, chase off Amleth. They think that they've killed him, but he escapes, vowing to save his father and avenge his mother by killing his uncle. Like you do. Fast forward a bunch of years later, Amleth is now a berserker, working with another kind of roving band of Vikings. But after they attack,
I kept wanting them to cut away to a D&D table where someone's rolling for initiative. It's fun to see the berserker thing come to life like that, but my only way of relating to it was as a class of warrior while playing D&D.
Okay. I mean, also to be clear, berserker is a subclass for barbarians. And
yes,
not
nerd.
A very good one.
Hey, I played a berserker. I liked having the ability to do the berserker rage. But please continue.
In which edition? Hang on, now I have to ask this question.
So this is the mid to late 90s that I'm playing D&D.
Okay, so yeah, you're like third, maybe 3.5. Okay. Anyway, after they attack a village in the land of Rus, which will later become presumably some part of Russia or Ukraine or something else like that. But after they destroy this village, and the young children are burned alive in a house, and many of the women are sexually assaulted. Most of the adult men are killed or sold into slavery. He gets a brief vision about how he's running away from his destiny and he needs to go back and face this head on. He then overhears that some of the slaves are being sold to Fjolnir, who has left where they started the movie in Norway and has fled to the backwater wasteland of Iceland. That's how they describe it, not me. So he cuts his hair, brands himself a slave, and wants to go get close to his uncle. While they are traveling, he meets Anya Taylor-Joy, the witch Olga. They eventually find their way to Fjolnir's camp, and he's a chieftain now. He's not a king. He was driven out by another king. Now he's a sheep herder with some men at arms and a bunch of slaves. And a new son that would be Amleth's half-brother. And he has a son that came from a previous encounter of some variety. Ultimately, Amleth and Olga are among slaves who stick around there. He goes on a little bit of a vision quest. He encounters a witch who has the head of his old someone from the previous iteration of his family's court. He gets some more advice about where to go next and what to do. He claims a magic sword. He saves his younger brother during what looked like a game of Hurley. It's not Hurley, but that's the closest I can get. And culminates.
It was like an ancient version of field hockey. It felt like.
Yeah, that's kind of what Hurley is. It's an Irish sport.
Okay.
This particular game culminates with him beating Hafthor Bjornsson to death via headbutts. Which Alexander Skarsgård is either much, much larger than I think he is, or they did some really impressive trick shots, because Hafthor Bjornsson is legitimately like 6'8". He is an enormous man.
I wouldn't know where to find his height. It's not in his wiki, though, which is kind of frustrating.
It should be. Yeah, he's 6'9".
Alexander Skarsgård?
Oh, Skarsgård, no. Yeah, Bjornsson is 6'9".
No, him, he's a professional athlete. That would have been easy. I'm gonna see if I can find Skarsgård's height.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so he winds up headbutting him to death, but in the process of saving the youngest son of the queen and king, or chieftain and chieftess, he is rewarded with a position of authority over other slaves, and he can take Olga to be his wife because Olga's been kind of fending off Fjolnir's advances with, well, it's that time of the month. It's
Okay,
not a joke.
6'4", by the way.
Okay, so he's legitimately one of the taller actors you're going to find is
Mhm.
Skarsgård. Most actors are a lot shorter than you think because it makes things easier for filming.
Yeah, like I think Tom Cruise is like 5'3".
Yeah, I mean, everyone joke. we joke about Tom Cruise, but I mean this legitimately. I mean, Edge is fond of telling the story. Like, as a professional wrestler, Edge is an average-sized professional wrestler. Little on the taller side, but, he's not huge.
Mhm.
Then he got to Hollywood and started making television shows and whatnot, and I'm like 6-7 inches taller than everyone else.
Yeah, like at Sylvester Stallone, when you see him in Rocky compared to like Burgess Meredith and Burt Young and Talia Shire, he looks like he's like 7 feet tall, and then he stands next to Hulk Hogan in Rocky 3, and you suddenly realize how short Sylvester Stallone really is.
In fairness, that's a gimmick shot as well. Hogan's not that much. Well, actually, at that point in time, Hogan was still a couple of inches taller than he is now, but. Again, Stallone coming up to here on Hulk is a gimmicked shot.
Either way, Stallone is shorter than he is perceived to be, especially in his early action stuff.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, back to the Northman.
So he starts using his magic sword to kill some of the men around the camp and drive Fjolnir into a bit of insanity and paranoia. He talks with his mother, reveals who he is, and she says, "But don't you understand? I never wanted you anyway. Your father was a terrible person who..."
I believe I have footage of that actual shot.
Oh.
It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain.
Been dying to use that lately.
Wasn't quite that, but
it was
also
close.
How dare that movie waste Christoph Waltz like that? It needs to be said again.
I'll wait my turn to talk about that scene, but it was almost that level of the credit to Nicole Kidman for being able to pull it off, but she kind of goes full Disney villain in that scene.
Yeah, again, we can talk about that one specifically.
Yeah.
Anyway, he winds up escaping. He kills Fjolnir's oldest son and steals his heart, and winds up giving a heart back to Fjolnir in exchange for Olga getting to run away free. He's captured. He's eventually rescued by ravens because that's the spirit of his father. Olga saves him from where he's fallen after being tortured. They recover, and they kind of decide, you know what? This is not worth it. Let's just get out of here. You've got kinsmen we can go to. Like, we don't need this crap. As they're boarding the ship to sail away, he gets a vision that Olga is pregnant, and which she confirms. And he then decides, you know what? If he thinks we're alive, Fjolnir, he'll hunt us. And that's not just you and me anymore. Now I have to worry about children. And you need to be safe. So you go to my kinsmen. They will take care of you. And I'm going to go deal with this. He swims back to shore. It's kind of a death sentence, but I'll yell it. Eggers has a wonderful gift for historical accuracy most of the time. Getting your clothes wet at this period of history could be a death sentence.
Moving on.
So he returns to Fjolnir's camp, kills his remaining men, frees the slaves, kills his mother and his younger half-brother after being attacked by both of them. Fjolnir then challenges him to ritual combat on the slopes of Mount Doom. Amleth agrees. They fight. They kill each other. And Amleth and we end the movie with Amleth being given a vision of his children being raised happy and healthy by Olga, and he is escorted to the gates of Valhalla by a Valkyrie.
All right, I like this movie a lot. This was really intense. I saw it late at night, so I
saw this movie because I normally try to do these things on Tuesday because it's a $5 thing for my local theater. Turns out the first showing today would have been at 3, which screws up everything else I do in the afternoons. So I had to go see it at 9:30 last night was the starting time. So
Yeah, I went after work. I went with my I've adopted this movie buddy who on my work weekends, because I work every other weekend. Me and her go to the movies, and I went with her. We usually go get dinner, and then I take her to the movies. And so we usually catch like a 10 o'clock show, and because I'm exhausted, I sometimes will drift in and out of these movies that we see. And this one, in the beginning, I was having a hard time kind of staying focused, but as it progressed,
once this gets going, man, it's right here and just never lets go.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it like a roller coaster ride. It wasn't like, you didn't see Ambulance, but like Ambulance was one where it just once they literally got in the ambulance, it just never stops, and it's really intense. This was a different kind of intensity. We spent the first 20-ish minutes or so talking about the state of film. The reason why we did that tangent, other than I just wanted to wax nostalgic with my friend, is how cowardly film is made now.
You are. I was so happy walking, which is weird to say about this movie, right? Because this is not a happy film.
No, I get it though. Like I get you. I get what you're saying, because that's what I'm saying.
I walked out of this and went, that's the first time all year I've seen a movie for adults.
Not only that, but when I say like cowardly, there's always this sense of if you do this, will we lose people? This movie is very punk rock in that sense of it is in your face. It is exactly everything it wants to be. No, I'm not saying it's perfect, nor am I saying everyone should love it, but it exists as a movie unafraid to just be what the artist who made it envisioned it to be, unapologetically. That's what I'm saying. So much of today's movies is cowardly because they are afraid to be unapologetic, because they're afraid they're going to lose people. This one doesn't give a shit.
We've got to keep all the general audiences happy, and we've got to appeal to the youngest demographic reasonable, and we've got to appeal to China.
The Northman gave no fucks.
None.
And it's kind of gloriously beautiful. Like, it's brutal and it's dirty and gross at times, and it's slow and it's methodical.
I would say deliberate, not slow, because
there are some pacing issues with this movie.
Okay.
For example, I'll give you one of my. There's a lot of buildup. This is where I would make a sex joke, but I'm going to avoid that tonight. But there is a lot of buildup.
There's too much rape in this movie for you to make a sex joke.
Yeah. There's a lot of buildup, and so the beginning of the movie is just so violently brutal and then it kind of, it comes down a little bit, and there's a lot of storytelling, and it's still brutal. That it never really lets up on that, but it's not quite berserker rage, violent brutality like it is in the beginning of the movie. So we get through this middle part of the movie, and again, there's some pacing issues there, and you're not wrong when you say it's very deliberate, which I think is good. It's kind of it very much felt like a film of the 70s. It very much had the kind of Deer Hunter, Dog Day Afternoon talking pacing.
This is not a movie that's afraid to make the audience watch and make the audience pay attention.
It's kind of like Refn without the purposeful pregnant pauses.
Oh,
like people just talked, but Refn, I bring that up because when we talked about Too Old to Die Young, and then Sean and I talked the one with the in Thailand, who's, I can't remember the name of the movie anymore, but we talked about how Refn
Only God Forgives.
Only God Forgives, yeah. How one of Refn's styles was letting the camera be still, letting the shots breathe, giving the actors room to really be present in the moment, which is not something you see in a lot of modern Hollywood productions, because it's got to be snappy or you lose your audience.
It's a billion cuts, and we've got to keep the 8-year-olds entertained.
Right. Or the passive adult film watchers. Anyway.
Okay, look. I'm going to phrase this very carefully. As someone who has been a passive adult film, who has been a passive watcher of movies, I do this. Though I will put something on in the background. It'll be on the second monitor while I'm doing something else, like whatever.
Mm.
When you go to when you go to the movies and you do that, tell me your brain does not regress to that of an 8-year-old.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a valid point.
If I say it that way, understand I'm not trying to insult you. Like being able to go back to that frame of mind and just enjoy something is, when used in an appropriate moderation, a healthy and an enjoyable thing. But but when I say that's what I mean.
So we get to the end of the movie. This is where I was trying to get to. We get to the end of the movie, and to me, they were building up to him going full berserker rage again, and like I was waiting for like a gory, violent eruption, and I started to get that, and then it was like they pulled away, and I don't think they pulled away out of cowardice. I think they pulled away out of narrative, but it almost felt like, to use wrestling parlance, we've done everything we can to build up James Storm, and then we don't put the belt on him because we need to subvert expectations, and you've now lost everybody. So when you finally get to James Storm being the TNA champion, no one gave a crap anymore.
And then next week, Robert Roode wins it because
Swerve, sure. Not quite that ridiculous, but they built. I was waiting for this burst of explosion of rage, and then they took it away, and then there's more film. And then he has the final fight, but then when he finally gets, when he finally fights Obi-Wan Kenobi in the law, they don't take care. It kind of be over. So in that sense, I think it overstays its welcome. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes. I know we say this every show. This was a little overindulgent. I think it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a really good movie. I think it's beautiful. I think it forces you to pay attention to it. I think it is a passion project for everyone involved, and you can see the love they put into this. It's clearly not for everybody, but that doesn't speak to the craft. It's just that, that's personal taste. But I do think in terms of how it could be improved, maybe get it closer to just the 2-hour mark. There were some. This feels like nobody wanted to say no in editing. Every shot was everyone's baby, and it all needed to be kept. And it's like, gosh, that rarely works in film. I mean, I can't think of a whole lot of examples of we must keep all the babies and it works out perfectly. I feel like the more babies you keep, the less effective your film is. And this film is wildly effective. So we're talking shave this down 20 minutes and you get an A+. Leave it as is, it's kind of an A-, which is negligible quibbling, but it's still a quibble.
I'm not quite sure I'm with you in terms of shaving 20 minutes off. I imagine you could get 5 cut easily.
Mm-hmm. Our friend Harry hanging out with us tonight says the movie looked intriguing, but not sure enough to check out. Gosh, Harry, you watch no movies. This would be a weird one to start with. But he also says, sounds like the same issue you had with Quiz Show. Yeah, I have this with a lot of movies. Robert's been in on enough of these where I've said, is nobody like the best story I've ever heard is George Lucas in Star Wars, where
they had wife has to save that stupid movie in the editing.
Right. And I think that's a really good example of how it should be. I think Lord of the Rings also, Peter Jackson directed, but I think his wife edited that movie, and it was the Patton Oswalt thing of I have to take all this footage you shot and make a movie out of it, which means a lot of stuff gets left. Jesus Christ, those movies are 3 hours if you watch the director's cut, and they still had to leave stuff on the floor.
Yeah. So again, I'm with you in that I think this could have been shaved. I think if you shave too much off of this, you lose some of what makes it so good, but that might also be a personal preference difference. I'm with you. I enjoyed this movie thoroughly.
The room for discussion of between 1 to 20 minutes, how much you want to cut.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I think 5 could have come off easy. Like there's an easy 5 minutes you could shave off of this thing, like just across its runtime. And again, maybe if we do that over a long enough period, we do get closer to 10. But that's just kind of my. As I sit here, my initial thought would be it's probably closer to 5, and that gets you away from the slightly overlong feeling, but also keeps some of the spectacle and some of the pacing that you kind of need. Like, again, this movie is paced very, very intentionally, and I think if you, pardon me, I'm a little bit under the weather, so if you catch me coughing, that's why. I think if you cut too much, you lose a lot of the great still shots, like the great tracking shots through some of the battle sequences that are just. I mean, that opening, the first major action sequence when they're attacking that village in Russia. I mean, that's amazing. This is, for the record, this is Robert Eggers' 3rd film. Previously, he had directed The Witch and The Lighthouse, which are very different movies from each other, and very different from this one. And none of them is an action movie. And this one, he's got a great eye for it, it turns out. It's really good. The acting in this is... Maybe I'm just so used to the very, very pedantic wide release style of acting these days. And
broad acting.
And look, let me be clear. That doesn't mean that there's not emotional resonance in those types of performances. Because there is.
No, but
you watch again to the scene that you referenced earlier. You watch Alexander Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman in that one scene in that tent and understand something. You are never going to see anything approximating that in something like the MCU. You're never going to see it.
So before too much time passes and we don't talk about it, or I'm having to rush at the end, let's just focus on that scene.
Sure.
Alexander Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman are excellent. That is some of the best acting I have seen all year. It's some of the best acting I've seen in the past 5 years. It is. I don't know if the Northman's going to end up getting nominated for prizes over the next year.
It should.
but if I had to base it on one scene alone, it's that scene. They are so present. They are so enmeshed in their characters. You don't see Alexander Skarsgård anymore. Like, just because it's an easy one to pick at. If you look at some of the Marvel movies, that's very much Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, and Slappy McGee, Iron Man.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. Yes, we know them as their characters, and they do a good job of getting into those roles, but those roles are broad enough that it's still easy to see the actor there. A lot of what Tom Cruise does, despite himself, you can still very much see Tom Cruise. I utterly lost Nicole Kidman in that scene. Like, you could very, very visibly see her face. It's not like they did a lot of makeup or CGI to change it or anything like that. What I'm trying to say is sometimes someone's performance is so vibrant that you don't see the actor anymore. You just see that character. Alexander Skarsgård in that scene, like, there are bits and pieces of the movie where I still see Alexander Skarsgård, playing a big Viking dude.
Yeah, and to his credit, I think they put him on screen a lot in this movie.
Right.
And while Skarsgård is a good actor, I don't mean to. I mean, if you doubt that, feel free to watch this movie and then try to tell me that man's not a very gifted actor. But he's also not quite, Joaquin Phoenix or Daniel Day-Lewis or the kind of guy who, like, okay, if you're Daniel Day-Lewis in something like There Will Be Blood, you're on screen.
Colin Farrell is Colin Farrell is the Penguin. I understand they caked on 10 pounds of makeup, but it's not like I was hearing Bullseye either. Like, Colin Farrell lost himself in that role and was very much that iteration of the Penguin.
Yeah.
The makeup helps. I'm sorry, I cut you off, but I wanted to throw that as an example.
But my point there was just, if you're looking at someone who's going to be on screen for 90 some odd % of your movie and not have places where between their performance and the editing and the shooting and whatnot, there's little inconsistencies, you've got to be a truly special. And again, when I say that, I don't mean like you're very, very good. You've got to be Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, right? He's literally on screen for that entire film, barring like 2 cuts during the riot.
Anya Taylor-Joy is a great actress. As just by way of comparison, she could learn a thing or two from Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Because I never stopped seeing sexy butt Anya Taylor-Joy in this movie. You know, she can do.
This might sound weird when it comes to her, but I think if we're talking about the quality of her acting, I think she's a better TV actress. If you have not seen Queen's Gambit on Netflix, she turns in one of the more remarkable performances. Like it's held in very high esteem for a very good reason.
I was gonna say One Night in Soho. See, One Night in Soho, the earlier scenes where you see her in the past, I think I don't see Anya Taylor-Joy anymore. See here, I very much saw her. So just to go back to that scene so we can finish talking about it.
Yeah.
I mentioned before, Nicole Kidman goes full Disney villain. That's not a criticism. That's a compliment. Like she knew
that scene,
she had to hit a shrieking pitch.
That scene could have so easily been what derailed this entire movie.
Yeah.
Like, again, like when you like, that's kind of when you did the author of all your pain thing, like I balked a little bit because that is kind of the scene that derails so much of Spectre to that point when you just okay. Like, at this point, I am beyond caring, and you tell me that you're beyond caring with the way you've written this.
Right.
But yeah, that scene could have ruined everything that follows it because this is meant to be a big thing. This is his. I mean, he has this great line after that when he's talking with Olga about. He's like, "Yeah, she murdered my past. I don't know who I am anymore."
Right.
Like everything I thought was real was not, and that will, you know, and if that scene, the one that is earth-shattering for this character, comes across as eye-rolling or comical to the audience, you've lost everything.
Right.
And everyone in that scene nails it.
I want to say something very specific about that because everyone thinks it's easy to be an actor. Everyone wants to be a player. Everyone wants to be a movie star. There is a craft to acting that escapes most people. It looks easy, especially if you like. It's so funny, the content whiplash I've had to go through this past week because I went to go see this Friday night with my buddy. At the same time, I'm binge watching How I Met Your Father.
Yeah, that's for the record. I had a similar content whiplash in the combat sports world on Saturday. I watched the heavyweight boxing fight between Tyson Fury and Dillian White. Which is great. It's a great display from Tyson Fury. Ends in a brilliant 6th round knockout.
Yep.
Tyson Fury is the best.
Yeah, he is deceptively one of the best boxers in modern boxing right now. I was talking to my wife about that. I was like, gosh, you don't want to say he's Floyd Mayweather, you know, but he's so good. And you would think like a guy who looks, you know, like one of the oddities from the WWE would be that good, but he is the best. He's so good. He's so good. He made it seem like Dillian White was exposed. Dillian White wasn't exposed. There's just a chasm of ability between the best of the best and Dillian White.
Well, also Dillian White in all 3 of Dillian White's losses. So Anthony Joshua, Alexander Povetkin, and now Tyson Fury. Guess what punch ended him in all 3? The right uppercut. So yeah, he's a little exposed. Like just throw uppercuts at the guy.
Yeah. Anyway,
hang on. The point there is I went from that,
yeah,
which is, you know, Tyson Fury is about as good as boxing gets. He may not be the absolute pinnacle of it, but he's certainly up there.
Sure.
About 15 minutes later, a little bit longer than that, but yeah, about 15, 20 minutes later, the UFC event starts. And our first fight on the prelims is Mike Jackson, who you might remember as the schlub that they pulled out of the media pool to fight CM Punk in Punk's second fight in the UFC, which was a terrible fight that Jackson won and then had changed to a no contest after he failed a drug test, against a 4-1 Irish guy, and it ends via DQ in the first round after the Irish guy kicks Mike Jackson in the crotch twice and then visibly gouges him in the eye trying to break a clinch. Tyson Fury, Dillian White, Mike Jackson, Dean Barry, and I went from here to here
with
that fast.
Nothing in between. Yeah, same thing. It was like I'm watching the Northman, and then I got to watch, this group of idiots, do How I Met Your Father. And the point related to the Northman is the subtlety of the craft of acting is on display in Nicole Kidman in that scene.
Oh yeah.
For those of you who think acting is, I'm pretty and have big boobs, or I'm handsome and have abs, I should be in pictures. Maybe you should, because God only knows it takes all kinds to sell a movie ticket these days. But know that a real actor, just as by way of example, Dwayne Johnson and John Cena both had to really work at it to become passable actors. They didn't start off that way. They started off as bodies and as personalities. And they had to learn to act. And neither one of them is a stellar actor even now, but they're miles away from where they started.
Oh, yeah, you compare. Look, if you compare John Cena in The Marine to John Cena in Peacemaker, there is again, the difference between those two. The acting ability on display in those two projects is enormous.
Well, look at just another by way of comparison, because The Rock Dwayne Johnson did The Game Plan after he had gone through acting classes and had gotten some chops under him and was able to stretch as an actor. So if you compare again The Game Plan to The Scorpion King, for example, there's again a wide chasm of ability. And so just to conclude this point, between the shrieking pitch that she hits, the absolute, there's a term in directing, there's a term in acting called, going for it. I have gone for it on this show. I missed more than I hit.
Once.
I missed more than I hit. Me singing Agatha all along to Robert because I think it'll be funny, and it coming across as way awkward.
There are people who find that funny.
I went for it. And I whiffed, and I may have hit Alexis with the bat. So going for it as an actor, she clearly went for it, and there's enough talented people involved in the direction of that scene and the acting of that scene that she doesn't go too far to where it becomes
cartoony
or a parody, but you need every bit of the drama in that scene for it to work. If she doesn't go, it is a stellar and beautiful and just almost heartbreaking thing to see somebody nail a pitch. When you need a very precise pitch in a scene in order to sell it, and you get the perfect amount of acting and the perfect amount of directing and the perfect amount of blocking where actors need to be, the camera's where it should be, everything just... It's like a chorus coming together or something. It's one of the things that makes film exciting for me. And the whole movie gets encapsulated in that one scene where just everything works and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And you change a detail even a little bit here or there, move a camera, direct her differently, block them differently, and the whole scene might unravel. But it doesn't, and that's the magic of that scene. If for people who might not want to run to the theater to go see this for one reason or another, it's worth watching PVOD just to watch that scene. It is a work of art.
It absolutely is. I couldn't agree with you more on that. It's wonderful, and I love the physical acting in all of this movie. I think Skarsgård in particular. He gets the physicality of this role in a way that very few people get the physicality of what they're doing these days. When whether he's hauling things around or he's getting hit or, he's trying to shoulder check a man 5 inches taller and at least 100 pounds heavier than he is.
And 5 inches wider.
Well, I'd have to double check where Bjornsson is at now because he fluctuates, but
sure.
Yeah, and it was such a great sequence, like that again, the field hockey game.
Oh my God. I'll tell you what, this should be nominated for sound editing, though, based on just that scene alone and those hits. You could hear crunching. You could hear impact of body to body and crunching of bone. It was breathtaking and frightening all at the same time.
Oh yeah, it was
You
genuinely
really
great.
feel like you're there. Like, credit to the sound editors. They were like, all right, we want to make this sound like someone died in your living room. Go.
Well, okay, we'll figure out a way to make that work. We'll bust out the Foley and we'll get celery and we'll get some raw meat and we will figure this thing out.
We will hit a chicken in the face.
Again, that's like you said, that's to the credit of the sound design. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Great sound design is something that goes under the radar far too often. I mean, if you want another example, if you consider like the best sound designed movie in history, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the sound of the snakes slithering over each other.
Mm.
You know how they get? Do you know how they got that?
I know there's a crazy story about it, but go ahead.
It's them. It's the sound guys. They're on a gravel road, and one of them just leans out the side of the car and puts the microphone down by the tire. It's the sound of a car driving over gravel.
Nice.
Kind of the same thing with the boulder when it's chasing Indy. Like, it's from that same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and the sound design here, you feel the impact. Everything that happens has a sound component that gets you in the guts.
Well, even the early Berserker raid scenes. I mean,
yeah,
it's a lot of screaming, but it's so guttural,
and to your point about everyone who thinks acting is easy, I'm aware of a director who is of the opinion that acting is the hardest job in the world for the following reason. What you have to do to as an actor, is get yourself into a place where you feel something. And then you have to be able to access that and replicate it over and over and over and over and over again so that they can shoot the scene over and over and over and over and over again. And if you're doing, a sitcom, not the hardest thing in the world. When the director's like, okay, we're going to shoot the scene where you finally get to take revenge on the man who murdered your father, kidnapped your mother, and okay, now I'm going to put the camera right in front of your face and you're about to die. You feel that you're about to die and you have to sell all of this with just your eyes and your breathing. Go. Like, you couldn't do that, listener, depending on who you are.
Right.
I couldn't do that. Like, it's so hard to, and it's kind of on the same vein. When we talk about, we talked about Joker, and I don't think I talked about it enough at the time, but there's sequences in Joker where Joaquin Phoenix is simultaneously laughing hysterically, but sobbing. I don't know how you do that believably.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I genuinely don't know what you do in your headspace to get to a point where you can laugh hysterically here at your mouth, but here you are sobbing uncontrollably. I don't know how you do that.
I mean, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix, you can't take it away from him. I mean, we're pointing at Joker as the most visible example of his acting, but look at like the wide, like Alexis and I reviewed Come On, and he's not playing a particularly colorful character in that, but it's great. He does a great job with it. I think the other thing, this is the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll let you have your final piece on the Northman, because I don't have that much more to say. We're over an hour now. Yeah. But, acting is about the subtlety. It's not about the broad reactions. Comedy is about broad reactions. Yeah. And it's easier, I think, to be a comedian than it is to be an actor, and they are not the same thing. You can be like, I'm funny, I'm also overweight, so it would be funny to watch me trip and fall. Like, Chris Farley was funny, but he was funny because he was a fat guy who did physical comedy. And there were just, Sam Kinison, as another example, made people laugh because he was screaming in their face and people would laugh out of, discomfort. Comedy is easy. Acting is hard. To create a character that's believable.
You bring up Chris Farley, and I'm not to speak ill of the dead. Funny guy,
Mm-hmm.
But watch his movies from an acting standpoint, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, he's doing shtick.
Yeah.
But he's doing the shtick that was funny on Saturday Night Live, and that is a large part of those movies. Is let's take the shtick that was funny and build a movie around it. Molly Shannon, with the Catholic school girl and the hands in the armpits.
Oof.
Let's build a thing around that. Let's build a movie around Will Ferrell and the Chris Kattan, as they dance in front of a club awkwardly. Let's build a movie. That's funny. Let's build a movie around it. Jason and I reviewed The Ladies' Man. It was a sketch on Saturday Night Live. They built a movie around it.
By contrast, hey, Alexander Skarsgård, you're gonna walk this tapestry through this house, and your character's gonna get the first look at his mother in 20 years, and it's gonna be for just a second through a cracked door, and the camera's gonna be here, and we're gonna shut the door, so you've got 5 seconds less. Much less, now that I think about it, to convey on your character's face the heartbreak and elation at her still being alive. Go.
Yeah, right. Not a lot of actors can pull that off. All right, your final thoughts. I'm going to say this. I think The Northman is great. I think it's probably going to be I think at the end of the day, it's going to be one of the best films of this year. But I don't know how many people are going to be talking about it because it is so off the beaten path of what is commonly enjoyed by not just the average film person, but even film critic people. We'll get to it when we get to the Rotten Tomatoes part, the critical review. But I've seen the numbers, and not that it was hated or even rotten in either case, but I think people struggled with this. I think the most common conversation around film that I have with people is them saying, I don't go to the movies to be made to feel uncomfortable. And I feel like that is a commonly held belief about critics too. A commonly held belief among critics is that they too don't want to be made to feel uncomfortable. Film should always be a pleasurable experience. I think is probably like the most commonly held religious belief among the Western world.
Okay, there's two things.
Going to the movie should be a fun activity. This is not a fun movie.
There's two things
by any stretch of the imagination.
Two things that need to be said about that. No, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, could you imagine trying to get Schindler's List made today?
Yes, but it would be on Netflix.
Again, but just can you imagine trying to pitch that? I mean, even Netflix might not take it. If you've seen what they're having to cut, what they're cutting back on these days.
Well, they did Mank. There's an argument to be made they would do Schindler's List, but on the other hand, that was also 2 years ago.
But again, just the point is, hey, I want to make a movie about the Holocaust, and I want it to be accurate.
Right.
And we're going to use real people. We're going to base this on real events, not just like the general Holocaust, because believe it or not, there's a fair number of fiction set during the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
But and we're going to make this as realistic as possible. Like nobody's going to give you the time of day today. Like no.
Right.
And even if you do get it released, can you imagine the Rotten Tomatoes reaction to Schindler's List if it were released today? I don't go to the movies to feel those idiots. And second, I've come to the conclusion that there's something MMA journalism and contemporary film criticism have something very much in common. And you were around the MMA journalism game for, a significant period of time.
Yep.
Here's what I mean by that. Most MMA journalists, and you can put air quotes around that if you feel so inclined, are nothing but glorified fans.
Right.
And if you look at most contemporary film critics, I think that's all they are. They are glorified.
That's all the modern
glorified
criticism.
fans.
I was going to say that the places where journalism is housed, just sort of an awkward way of saying newspapers, blogs, websites, etc., Cable news networks.
They don't want those. They don't want those things anymore.
Well, nobody seems to want critical analysis.
No,
like
they really don't.
You know, I hate to be like our show, right? But our show, you know, our show is film critical analysis. Yes, you and I also like to poke and and pinch each other, and it can get silly, and we bring other people, and there's less analysis going on during those things. But like when you think about just the ones where it's just me and you, I would like to believe, and I'm certainly shooting for, like real film analysis. What we talk about things like film composition, shot composition, things like that. We just did 10 to 20 minutes on the nature of acting and what is real acting and what is, a pretty face on camera reciting dialogue. And when I think
and Nicole Kidman's probably going to get an Oscar nomination for supporting actress for that scene alone and deserve it.
Right. And so, when I think about what we're doing, it's the kind of thing you would do in a film class. But when I think about the nature of criticism, when
Kevin Carr haunts your nightmares.
When I think about the nature of film criticism, whether it's amateur or professional, it very much comes across like all everyone wants criticism to be is fan reaction.
Yeah.
They don't want the critical analysis piece. And critical analysis is what used to separate journalism or criticism from, some asshole's fanzine or a letter to the editor. Or now, because of the nature of the internet and social media, everyone's Twitter feed.
Or no. Whatever the
wait, have you seen my dad's have you seen my dad's TikTok?
No. Why would I?
Oh my God. Okay, so please say what you're going to say, but I have to pull up my dad's TikTok now because it is emblematic of where we are in terms of the promotion of personal opinion as criticism as opposed to the critical analysis it used to be. It's fucking hilarious, dude.
Okay.
And by the way, it's my most popular TikTok ever. Hang on.
Okay, here, you look at that. I'm just going to say.
Yeah.
It's everyone's Twitter feed or ... whatever the liberals or whatever website the liberals concoct now that Elon Musk has taken over. Because we try to be apolitical here, let me make this abundantly clear. I laughed at all the conservative people who said I'm leaving Twitter after Trump got kicked off. I laughed at them.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get to laugh at everyone on the other side of the aisle going, Elon Musk bad, I'm leaving. Like, I'm sorry. I just get to laugh at all of you because you're all idiots.
All right, I have it up. This is
all right. God help us all.
I'm playing this because I'm telling you right now, this to me sums up where we are in the culture.
Okay.
Just in so many different ways. Not even the content of what he's saying as a valid argument. More the fact that this is the kinds of things that get said. And to that point, it's the kind of things that get said and then become the focus of debate and conversation and not any kind of real analysis of the subject matter. So here we go. I love my dad. I love my dad. I love my dad. I love my dad.
No, I'm just looking at the subtitle you put there, and
this is great, right?
This is gonna go so badly.
Oh my God, this might get us demonetized.
Yeah. Hey, Republicans are great at projection. When you hear them talking about child pornography, you know it's something they want to do or are doing. When you hear them talking about cancel culture, there are tons. Yeah. Hey there.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that being everything out of the world right now.
Right?
No. Again, like with how you set that up, yes, you are correct. That's what everyone does.
So bad. But so relating back to the Northman, how my father's ridiculous TikTok, the most popular one I have. So my average TikTok.
You put a political thing out there, that'll do it every single time.
My average TikTok between the exercise stuff that I do in the clips of these shows, average around 400. On the high end, I think the one that Ronnie and I did about Michael Bay movies got around the 800. Sorry. Harry's been hanging out with us the whole time tonight. I haven't put everything that he said up there, but this one cracks me up. My dad is canceled. Or they're gonna run him for president, one of the two. Anyway, so
you just what? Ew. Now I'm thinking about your dad as running for office, and I'm just horrified.
Trump Radulich 2026. Anyway, or 2024 rather. So anyway, but last thing, and then I'm going to let you end this critical review. So my average TikTok does around 400 views. 700 on the high end, 100 to 120 on the low end, and then there's some stuff that just doesn't resonate and it stays less than 100. It's fine. That's my TikTok. My dad's thing that I just played, almost 4,000 views. That was from Saturday. Our stupid culture. Go.
Yep. So to wrap on the Northman, this is a great movie. I mentioned him earlier, but I'm going to bring this up again. Robert Eggers is a tremendous director. He's directed 3 very different movies. The Witch is pretty much straight psychological horror and then has an ending that is deeply affecting, especially if you're... How do I say this? If you are a genuinely religious person, and I am, the ending of The Witch is disturbing in the ways you want to be disturbed by that movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Lighthouse is a wonderful, wonderful look at madness and isolation, anchored by a couple of great performances from Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Genuinely a great movie. Both of those are absolutely worth your time. I am very interested in what he does going forward. If this is kind of, by the time you get to about 3 to 4 movies, you've got a feel for a director. Because anybody can get lucky once, Jordan Peele. Sorry, I rewatched Us recently. And no. That's not a good movie. Anyway.
Start to wrap.
Yeah. So I'm very excited to see what he does next. He's a very interesting filmmaker. This is a great movie. It is very well shot. It is extremely... I was saving this for the segue, so I'll save it until I get to do that. But we talked about the sound design, for crying out loud. How many times do we do that? Not because it's not important to the success of a film and to the overall presentation, but because so much of it is so bland and just so there. I mean, it exists, but it's not really interesting or gripping, and it is here. The shot compositions are great. There's some great tracking shots that are just still, I mean, I'm not sure if they are single takes, but they're presented as single takes of these great battle sequences. This is a movie that's not afraid to be brutal, as we've talked about. There's a component of the writing to this that I deeply appreciate. They don't shy away from the religious violence. It's a very common thing here. I mean, part of the, we initially get Odin as being worshipped by Amleth and his father. And then by the time we get to Fjolnir, he has a different god. He has Fafnir, I think. And my favorite gag, like at one point when Amleth is being tortured by Fjolnir, he says, "No, you should fear Odin. He's going to wreak destruction on your god of erections," because Fafnir is a fertility god. They talk about violence towards Christians, which is extremely common at this point in human history. Christians were extremely persecuted. So they kept the religious undertones of this, and I appreciate that. This is a well-written movie. It's well shot. Again, the sound design is great. It's incredibly well acted. They get good acting out of some young actors here, and that's not an easy thing to do. I'm not sure I don't think it's a perfect movie, but it is a great movie. And again, I'll let you do the segue here, but I love the music for this thing. It's great. Like, the score for this movie is genuinely awesome. And it's done by...
Before we do the music, I just, there was something my wife brought this up, and she might be sleeping, so I don't want to run in there and ask her. But I was telling her that we were doing this tonight, and she goes, "Have you heard that there's criticism that there's not enough people of color in this movie?"
you know what? You might have found something that'll push my buttons more than this is a nihilistic film. This is not a nihilistic film. Yeah, why would there
I know.
In a historically accurate recreation of a quasi-Viking epic set in Norway, Iceland, and parts of Russia, I found out the other day why you call it the Ukraine, believe it or not, instead of just Ukraine. Or why, Mark, do you think there wouldn't be people of different skin pigmentations in a movie set above a specific latitude at a very specific point in time? I can't imagine.
No, I get it. I told her to send me the article and we just never had a chance, because all I'm finding right now is like there's an article here from The Guardian that says Norse code. Are white supremacists reading too much into the Northman? And there's like a slew of articles.
And that's dumb as well. How desperate are you people for content that this is the shit you're spinning out?
Yeah, there's an article here from the Mary Sue, which is not a real publication. The Northmen tried to take Vikings away from white supremacists. White supremacists hijacked the Northmen. That's from the Daily Mail.
How?
Critics claim,
what in the world is the...
Critics claim the Northmen emboldens white supremacists. But I can't find where my wife thought she saw people are complaining, and maybe she saw it on Twitter. Who knows? I don't know how much she's on Twitter these days.
I'm sure somewhere on Twitter is someone going, really?
Not enough black people in this movie about Vikings.
And we're not sure about, and could we maybe have gotten some asexual representation here?
Yeah. Where was the LGBTQ community represented in all of this? This is setting Hollywood back at least 10 years.
I hate everyone who is contributing to this narrative. Look, I said this, we referenced the movie earlier, but in the span of about 2 weeks, remember the fury that kicked up around Joker?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can't have this. There will be riots. You can't do this. Angry white men. Don't you understand? They will riot if we let Joker go through. Like, you guys are so desperate for some form of engagement and to fill space and time. You are creating something out of nothing. You are everything wrong with the political system in the sense that you are trying to wag the dog. Stop it. You suck.
All right, if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But like I said, according.
Don't feel like you have to. I really don't need that in my life.
Yeah, there's a lot here about the emboldening of white supremacists and stuff. But I'm not necessarily seeing something.
Was there anyone legitimately complaining that Black Panther would like cause a rise in the?
No, because then it was okay. When it was Black Panther, it was okay to have and it was. Don't get me wrong. You want to do
you're telling a story about an African culture that
right.
existed in essentially isolation
yeah,
for a long period of time. Sure, that makes sense. You're telling a story about Vikings pre-1000 AD. Guess what makes sense?
Yeah, that's the thing. You want to tell a Pan-African, superhero mythology story. You should make sure your cast is predominantly African American. I'm fine with this. In fact, if you can get more African actors to do it, that would be even better. You want to make a story about Vikings? Sorry, this isn't in the fucking Heights.
I love Idris Elba, but he ain't a Viking.
But could you imagine that argument taking place in a Hollywood office somewhere?
Yes.
Like, I want to do this Viking epic story that based on historical fact. Okay, well, who are you thinking about for leads? Well, we got Alexander Skarsgård. Like, I'm noticing you don't have a lot of black people on this list. Normally, you don't have a lot of Hispanic people on this list.
There's
a reason for that.
So Quentin Tarantino, you're making a movie about the antebellum South. We'd like you not to use the N-word. It's beyond stupid.
I said before, and then I'll do Amazon, and then we can get out of this. But I said before, this is unapologetically brave in a world that is so cowardly, and of course the reaction the reaction to that bravery. You ever just see a man act like a man and everyone repel around him, like, you know, just oh, not a man acting like a normal man. We can't have that.
Yeah,
That's kind of this movie.
I had to change a flat tire the other day, and the bus full of school children that drove by was horrified.
So the music is really good in this.
It really is. Like, I mean, we try to do this as a bit for a segue, but no, legitimately, the music in this thing is great.
Yeah, the music in this movie is very haunting, and it is almost as much a character of the movie as the scenery and set pieces. And if you were looking for great mood music for your D&D campaign, or you know, for your party or whatever else you're into, you should check out our free giveaway for a free trial, our 30-day giveaway rather, for a free trial of Amazon Music Unlimited. Go to getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network. Make sure you complete the sign-up process. You'll get your free 30 days. You can stream all you want, all 800 zillion songs currently on Amazon Music, new albums, all kinds of stuff that we review here on the Metal Hammer of Doom, like Rammstein, Lordi. In a week or two, the new Fozzy album. It's all there waiting for you.
You're doing Fozzy?
Sure, why not? We're kind of a wrestling network.
A little bit. I assume there's at least one single that's a little bit of the bubbly.
I hope. So yes, if you're into Chris Jericho's band, if you're into any of the stuff that we review in the Metal Hammer of Doom, and you want to hear it, you want to check it out for free, use our link here in the description of this podcast. Get amazonmusic.com/W2M Network. And
if you're interested, specifically if you're interested in some other stuff that touches on the kind of Viking style of singing, there's an artist by the name of Peyton Parrish.
Mm-hmm.
He did the vocals, I think, for one of the songs that was in the Assassin's Creed game that was Valhalla. He's quite good, and he does Viking metal, not exclusively, but he does a fair bit of that. So he's someone that, if you like kind of the sound like this and the Viking kind of throat singing sound, he does some stuff like that. So,
all right, and with that, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
You know, of all the things that we were talking about as far as like the old show, it's fun to hear the music come up again. You know, Here Comes the Money, Shane McMahon. But I can honestly say without hesitation, that might be still my favorite money theme we've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining about it.
Sorry, Harry's been weighing in for this whole show, and this last one that he put up here, he's like, I like Fozzy, but the other one was, we'll lean heavily the other way on Monday for when we review For the Culture, which is pretty much all Black people wrestling.
Yeah, someone else watching live, go hang out with Harry and keep him company.
All right, speaking of keeping Harry company, the budget on this movie is about on the north end of $90 million. It made $24.9 million. I think it's safe to say the problem with this movie is going to be the following.
I think that might be a little bit on the extreme side, and here I say that for only the following reason. Hang on.
Well, no, let me preface. I will let you have your say, but you do realize this thing. I don't even know where it landed. I haven't looked yet. We're about to do that. This thing went up against a DreamWorks movie based on a children's book series. My son actively reads those books, and if he's reading them, I guarantee you other kids are too. That's The Bad Guys and a Nick Cage like action comedy. And oh, by the way, this week is nothing, but the following week is Doctor Strange. Okay, it's not going to be profitable. Go ahead.
Hang on. I'm not saying its box office return is going to necessarily be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
I think whatever they get for streaming rights will get it over the hump. Like,
well, let's talk about that for a second. This is Focus Feature. Focus Feature is owned by Comcast. Comcast is Universal. It's going to go to Peacock, no?
I don't know that actually. I that's not me dissing on Peacock, which I do frequently.
Sure.
In this instance, that's more. No, I'm genuinely not sure. Like, I don't know if this is going straight to Peacock. This will probably have a pretty significant second life when it becomes PVOD.
Mm-hmm.
That would not surprise me one bit for this one. It's that kind of movie. Like, if you want to be able to, if you're interested in it, but you don't want to go sit in the movie theater for 2 hours, like, you could easily, get this on Amazon Prime or whatnot, and then have it.
Yeah.
So I am not calling this this is not going to be a blockbuster. It's not going to do great box office numbers, but I think when you factor in what they're going to get for streaming, I think they're going to wind up being okay. And moreover, this is the kind of movie that this is a prestige picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why you have it done through Focus.
Yeah. Look,
so
I'm not.
So
I think
I
thought it was a worthy endeavor, but this is the money. Yes, a lot of prestige pictures don't make any money, and if you're criticizing my use of the crashing and burning thing, calling it a bomb, okay, but I'm speaking specifically to did it or did it not at least make double its budget? It's not going to. No, it's just not.
In that respect, no. But by the same token, we also use the bomb for movies that wildly underperform.
I mean, that's fair. If that's your major hang up about it, but I don't think anyone else really wants to hear us debate whether or not I use the bombing thing. So let's talk about the weekend. So as I said, in the widest release of the three, and the most generally appealing, The Bad Guys was your number one movie of the weekend. I saw it today with Jonas. Jonas, who was the intended audience, loved it. I thought it was adorable. It was totes adorbs.
Please don't say that.
Sorry, Harry just put something up. Google says going to Peacock per the... There you go. Thank you, Harry. Harry playing the part of producer tonight. Google says going to Peacock per the wrap.
So not a real. So when NBC appropriately shuts down Peacock because it's not a real streaming service, someone else is going to pay for it.
Moving on. My son and I really enjoyed The Bad Guy. It's a very cute. You know me, I like a good heist film, and there's a lot of attention paid to details of a heist movie that they played with in a children's feature. So it was fun to see. The voice work was fine. The voice work was cute. It had a fine enough story to it. It's one of those things where I think if we had reviewed it instead of the Northman, I think we would have been like, yeah, it's okay. I think it's a great place for you. It's a great movie to take your children to.
Hang on.
But I don't think either one of us would have been like in love with the movie.
So no. What do you think my opinion of it would have been?
I mean, thinking back to our reviews of like How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Kung Fu Panda and Hotel Transylvania and the Angry Birds movie, I think you would have landed on it's fine. You'd have had your quibbles, you'd have had your Robertisms, and we would have had a conversation about it. But I think you, especially these days, you're more you sort of washed your hands of.
I accepted the middle ground.
Yeah, you've sort of washed your hands of expecting a higher order of film from things and just sort of accepting the middle ground, as you said.
I will damn you with your own mediocrity, because that's all. I don't need to go into flowery verbiage.
Yeah. And so I think you would have been like, it's okay. I think we both would have landed in the same place.
Ooh, could I have busted out my it's cheap, forgettable, disposable, crappy content?
Maybe because I don't. Well, Jonas's thing was they took half of one book and half of another book and made one movie out of it. There's a lot of he's already like in his mind producing the sequel.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's a little junior movie executive. I love him to death. And he's already plotting the sequel to this movie. And I said to him, like, that's fine, Jonas. It actually has to make money, though. However, I don't know anymore. I was just reading some stuff that's been Venom 3 was greenlit.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 4 was greenlit.
Yeah.
The Batman 2 was greenlit.
Well, that one makes sense. Again, it didn't hit the billion. Hang on. I will grant you, and look, I was the one who said this. Like, I said I don't think this hits the heights you think it will.
Yeah, sure.
It's still that's going to be one of the most successful that's going to be one of the highest earners of the year when it's all said and done.
Well, Doctor Strange, Jurassic
Hang on.
Park.
Look, it's going to be top 10 easy.
Okay.
It might even be top 5.
Remember, at the end of the year, there's still Avatar 2.
I will believe that when I actually see it. Avatar 2 is supposed to have been a thing for the last decade.
And then, you say top 10, but it's very easy to get to number 11 if you've got enough films in the top 10 to push you out of it. And now you're talking a matter of dollars and cents.
Well, okay.
So what happens if Black Adam and Shazam, which are both third and fourth quarter, actually kick ass?
Well, again, if you want to have a significant discussion about this, like Doctor Strange probably will beat it. I'll stress probably.
If it's not Avatar, Doctor Strange is your number 1 movie of the year.
I'm not as sold on that as I used to be, believe it or not.
Here, let's just go through this really quick.
So yeah, let's go through the top 10 that was, and then we can talk about the future.
Okay. I was gonna read like what's coming up over the summer, but yeah, let's stay focused. So The Bad Guys was your number 1 movie of the year. It knocked Sonic out of week. Sorry, it knocked Sonic out of the top 1 spot. It had 23,950,000.
It did not knock Sonic out of the top spot.
Oh, it knocked Fantastic Beasts. Yeah, You're right. Sorry. Sonic maintained its spot at number 2. It knocked Fantastic Beasts from 1 to 3. Oof, that thing went off a cliff in a barrel.
Dude,
yikes.
A 66% drop.
Ugh.
That's catastrophic for that
thing. I told you I listened back to our review of that, and we were saying at the time, like, this is not going well for this franchise. It's worse than that. Like, whoever wanted to see this movie saw it opening weekend, and that's the end of that, Jack.
I think they wildly missed the mark about how people. Again, I don't even think you need kids in these movies to make it work. Mm-hmm. But I do think you need to feature the magic of that world, and the last 2 haven't really done that, and people have caught on to the con.
Yep. The Northman debuted at number 4,
that's a strong debut for essentially an indie film.
Yeah, with a $12 million budget. This I'm surprised by, because I would have thought it of the 3 wide releases this weekend, it would have come in third, but it came in second, because what came in third was The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I don't know. Maybe if if they had titled it instead Being Nicolas Cage, people might have come to see it, or it just didn't have a good enough marketing budget. I don't know how much of an impact it made on television.
Here's the thing about The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to do fine when it comes to streaming.
Yeah, it's a Lionsgate feature, so that'll go to whoever the highest bidder is. It'll probably end up being on like Netflix or something.
But that's one of those movies that people are interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. But you clearly
not enough to go to the theater for it.
Yeah, not enough to pay for what theaters are charging, especially with inflation going up the way it is.
Yeah. Everything Everywhere All at Once, which we will be reviewing once it goes PVOD. With After Yang, apparently is like one of the better films of this year. People are raving about it. That dropped from 4 to 6. The Lost City 3 to 7. Fathers 2 5 to 8. Morbius 6 to 9. Speaking of movies that are tanking. Ambulance 7 to 10. Speaking of movies that are tanking. And The Batman fell from 8 to 11. It is currently on HBO Max as of this past week.
And again, to the point about The Batman, Look, it didn't hit the $1 billion mark. Okay, you wanted it to, clearly. It still did $750 million.
Yep. Icomo SL debuted at number 12. Petite Maman 17. The Duke 19. Unplugging 20. Take Me to the River, New Orleans 28. Hit the Road 29. Stanleyville 33. And that is the weekend worldwide. Speaking of The Batman at $759 million is the number 1 movie in the world. Watergate Bridge, which looks like it's almost a strictly foreign film.
Yeah, remember that's the follow up to the Battle of Lake Shing.
Oh, it's the other Chinese propaganda film. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Uncharted, currently at $392 million, is in the number 3 spot. Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog shooting up the charts at 289 million. Fantastic Beasts currently at number 5 at 281. Too Cool to Kill at number 6. Nice View 7. Morbius 8.
After number 5, no one cares.
Yeah,
that's where we are just in the year right now. Like
right.
It's kind of a dumpster fire after that.
So let's look at the calendar. This weekend is a nothing weekend. It's funny because like normally Friday night is my movie night, and I have very specific plans about that. And it's like this is the first weekend where I don't have to go to the movies. There's nothing to see. It's almost all the one wide release is an Open Roads film, which is again one of those like boutique studios.
Yeah.
And it's Memory, and it's Monica Bellucci, Liam Neeson, Guy Pearce, and Ray Stevenson.
And that's the kind of thing that appeals to me if I'm curious. But...
Sure. May 6th is Doctor Strange.
Well, okay. So hang on. I'm with you. I think Doctor Strange. I don't know that Doctor Strange is going to wind up being the number 1 movie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Let me phrase it this way. I'm not making a prediction about that. I think I've said this before about Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to come down to execution. Its weekend is going to be gangbusters, no doubt about it.
Here's the thing, and this is what you have to understand. It owns most of May. Here's why I say that. So it comes out May 6th, right? It has no other competition in its opening weekend. Its biggest competitor the following week is Firestarter, which is day and date on Peacock. You might as well not even count it. The following week,
you're big.
You're here. Yeah. Well, I was on my calendar, but so May 13th, your wide releases are
Firestarter. You scroll.
Firestarter, which isn't even. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, and it's saying it's in limited. That's even better. So
I'm calling a little bit of BS on that one, but
yeah, it's day and date. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't know how much people are going to be going to the theater to see a remake of a John Carpenter film 100 years later.
That is itself an adaptation of a Stephen King book.
Yeah. May 20th, the biggest thing that weekend is Downton Abbey 2.
That might do it if we're hang on.
That'll win its weekend.
Yeah,
but it's not gonna upend Doctor Strange. You're talking about two different audiences.
Okay, yeah. Hang on. Sorry, that wasn't what I meant by that. I meant that's going to. Doctor Strange will take the top spot for 2 weeks, and then Downton Abbey will unseat. It was what I was getting at.
Yes.
Did you see the trailer for Men ahead of this movie? Ahead of Northman?
Did not. No.
I was with that movie until the title came up, and then I just laughed.
Okay. Well, it's in wide release. No one's going to go see it, but it's in wide release. May 27th is a little bit more competitive. You have Top Gun Maverick, and you have Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
It's also for people here in the South, the last day of school. I think people, people the last day of school, like they'll go to the beach, they'll go to the pool, they might go to the movies, they might go see Bob's Burgers. Top Gun Maverick appeals to men. It appeals to middle-aged men, and I think men will come out for Top Gun. It'll win that weekend, and it'll cut somewhat into Doctor Strange. But I think by that point, Doctor Strange will have made shit tons of money to begin with.
Well, look, I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think Top Gun might bomb.
I don't think so.
Hang on.
I think the men will keep that alive.
Hear me out.
Okay. Okay.
It's going to win its weekend, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem buying that. But can I tell you rewatching the trailer, I got a really rough feeling about that movie, and I mean that in the following way.
Okay.
I think they're going to kill Tom Cruise at the end of that thing and try to have Miles Teller take his place.
Here's the thing.
I think they're trying the soft reboot thing, and I think that's going to backfire catastrophically.
It depends on the math. If everybody who's interested in seeing that movie comes out for an opening weekend and then is like, Top Gun Maverick sucked. I'm so disappointed. My expectations were subverted because they killed Tom Cruise. I don't know how much of that matters because everyone that was going to see the movie came out opening weekend anyway. And I don't know how many more people were coming after the fact and then won't now because Tom Cruise dies. Is what they heard.
Look, my argument here is not that it's going to do poorly its opening weekend. My argument is your opening weekend is not going to make you profitable.
No, but I guess that's the argument is that everyone's going to want to see this. Will probably see it opening weekend, and then the stragglers. I think the stragglers will get it to profitable, but just barely.
Again,
it depends on what the budget is.
I've kind of developed a hunch about that. I don't think that's going to do as well. I mean, look, if it had come out when it was originally supposed to, 3 years after the original Top Gun, like that's a whole different story. But that's just a feeling I've developed about that one.
Okay, well, here's something to keep in mind. The following week, there's nothing. It's all limited releases. There's an untitled WB event film for June 3rd, but I can't. Unless they announce something real quick, like I would say in the next week, I don't think anything shows up there. In which case, June 3rd is a bye week for Top Gun Maverick, and then Jurassic World Dominion comes out, and that's the end of that. Because then the following week is Lightyear.
Hang on, about Jurassic World Dominion.
Yes.
I saw the trailer again.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how much I have come to loathe this trilogy of films.
I get it. Lightyear probably makes $1 billion and is definitely going to be the number.
You know what? Hang on.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bold prediction.
What's your bold prediction?
There's only going to be $1 billion movie all year.
Doctor Strange?
No.
What?
Hang on. I don't know what. Let me rewind.
Okay.
I don't think we're getting more than $1 billion movie all year.
Well, I'm going to make a bold prediction that Doctor Strange makes $1 billion, Jurassic World makes $1 billion, Lightyear makes $1 billion. These are all known, wildly enjoyed properties with nary a problem in the bunch.
And in 2019, you would have been right.
That's a valid argument. We're living in the post-pandemic movie world. But I think these, I talk to a lot of people who don't go to the movies regularly, people outside of our little sphere of moviegoers. And the things they'll tell me, like, I get a lot of, I'm not going to the movies. That's where, that's where the pandemic is. And that's where the bullets are. And I don't like to leave my house. And I'm a nursing student and I'm busy. And don't you understand? And the two things I've heard people say they'll leave their house for: Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World.
Again, this is not me declaring that they're going to, like, that no one's going to go see them.
Yeah.
But I just don't. Do you know what it takes to make $1 billion picture?
Sure.
You don't just need a good weekend. You need like 6 weeks.
Right. Well, Spider-Man was the last one that did $1 billion. Look at the model for that. That had high rewatchability. That was a massive audience poll with a known property concluding a trilogy. Also, was part of a known film IP that was highly successful, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was an event picture because it incorporated the 2 previous Spider-Men and a bunch of the villains from the previous movie. So it had a lot going for it. So people went back to see it multiple times.
Yeah. I'm not saying Doctor Strange has no rewatch value. I'll have to see it before I can declare that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much rewatch value Jurassic World is going to have, because I don't think that's going to be a well-made movie.
No, but who cares? Kids like dinosaurs.
I don't think Lightyear gets there.
I think you're crazy. I think that here's the thing. I think if Lightyear wasn't going to be the crowd-pleasing film that it's going to be, that's sits Toy Story adjacent, they'd have pulled it already and put it on Disney Plus, like they did with Turning Red. They saw Turning Red coming, and they were like, "Nope, off to Disney Plus you go." I'm
not calling Lightyear a bomb. I don't think it's going to bomb at all. I don't think it hits $1 billion. Especially not with the limited window. That thing's going to Disney Plus in 40 days? That's the usual window we're dealing with.
Well, not
now.
only that, but I mean, look at how stacked June is, because like June 3rd's a bye week, but June 10th is Jurassic World, June 17th is Lightyear. This is fucking November all over again.
Yeah. June
24th is Elvis and the Black Phone, which don't really cut into Lightyear. So for children's movies, that's a bye week. Which we are doing Elvis. We're just not doing Elvis that weekend. I'm gonna save it for a week or two.
No, I think we're doing the Black Phone that week.
We're doing the Black. I didn't want to do 2 Daniel Hollywoods in 1 week for a variety of reasons. So I've just booted Elvis to a bye week.
But hey, guess what? The next week, look at what July
Minions. Fucking Minions. You got Minions in July.
If there's a movie that's going to hit $1 billion this year, it's going to be Minions.
Sure.
I'm right. Like,
And
that thing is not only an entry into a well-loved franchise, it's aimed at children.
Yeah.
And it has no problems, and it comes from a studio that has no problems with China.
Then you have, speaking of China, you have Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh,
you wanna spend 2 minutes just screaming about that trailer?
Sweet Child of Mine is a step down from Immigrant Song. And I don't hold Immigrant Song in high regard at all. Second, unless they actually have the balls to let Thor be a hero, I'm going to hate that movie. Like, it's going to be Thor being a hippie and Tessa Thompson's one facial expression and Natalie Portman's stunt double's biceps.
July 15th. So have you heard about Paws of Fury? Do you know what this is? It's a cartoon adaptation of Blazing Saddles with animal samurais.
That's the dumbest thing ever.
No fucking joke. Read about it when we're done here. I'm waiting for, it's Paramount Pictures. I am waiting for them to just make that day and date. My son, it appeals to my son. He's a boy and he doesn't know what Blazing Saddles is.
How about you just show your son Blazing Saddles?
I might. And then July 22nd is under the big one. There is Nope. Then Bullet Train and DC Super Pet. Speaking of things for children, and then we're into August. Then the summer's over. So
again, like, if I'm getting into my prognosticator ball about what I don't think we have multiple billion-dollar pictures this year. I'm not saying that's never going to happen again. I don't think it happens for the next. I don't think we're going to get it this year.
The only reason why I'm kind of with you is because in 2 to 3 years, from 2019 was the highest grossing year total for the motion picture industry. We had at least 10 pictures make $1 billion.
Yeah.
And in one case, like almost 3 billion, or it went over 3 billion. I can't remember how much Endgame made.
Whatever. Yeah,
but it was
one of the highest grossing films of all time.
Right. Pandemic happens, the 45 window, day and date becomes a thing, and then 45-day windows start. And that's a conversation that I often have with people is I'll say, oh, hey, such and such movies in the theaters. Great. When's it coming on streaming? Because I'm not leaving my house for this.
That's a very
the Venn diagram. Well, the Venn diagram looks like, does this movie get people out of their house, or is this movie something that they're willing to wait to watch at home? Like, how many movies are people chomping at the bit for that they can't wait 45 days? And I'll tell you, not a lot. Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's why I said, like, I think Doctor Strange is one of those where people want to see the X-Men. They're dying to see the X-Men. They want to see, character. Right now, the most popular trope in movies is characters from other movies in your stupid movie.
Yep.
So there's that, and then I think Lightyear makes $1 billion just because of the Toy Story thing.
I think Toy Story lost a lot of cachet with Toy Story 4.
No argument.
And they're making a big deal about the gay guys kissing.
I guarantee they'll cut that out to get it into China.
Oh, for China, absolutely. Like that doesn't make it into the cut of the Chinese film at all.
But if your argument is families won't take their children to see it because I mean, that I had forgotten about that changes the math.
Look, there's a contingent. I'm not saying all of them, but here's what really kills it. They chose to make a big deal out of this. Like, you didn't have you
such a
as
confused company. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're not kidding, man. Like, they made a big deal. They're making a big deal about pushing that, and I would kind of rather there not be sexual content at all in your children's movie. Call me crazy.
Fair argument. Disney right now is coming across like a middle-aged woman struggling with whether or not she can reconcile with her husband or continue to bang randos. Like,
That's
it really is.
Very odd metaphor, but I get where you're coming from.
Leave me alone and leave me to my metaphors that may or may not reflect the real life situation in my world. In any case,
so
but
next week on Divorce Cast,
no, it's not that particular woman in my life. No, Disney just seems very conflicted, and I use that metaphor one because I needed to poke fun at somebody, but also because it really does feel like on the one hand we want the cachet and the appreciation of
we want the positive social media engagement that comes from this.
That comes from gay inclusion. But we want the money that comes from the rest of the known universe that doesn't accept the LGBTQ community. Look, I'm an ally. Me and Effie are best friends. Paro liked one of my videos. He's my second bestie. This isn't coming from me, Mark Radulich, but I live in this world and I pay attention to stuff. And while there are enclaves of the Western world that are pro-LGBTQ, there are greater majorities of the rest of the world that aren't.
Well, and look, there's also a discussion to be had about what is appropriate for the age demographics you're aiming at.
What though, you're going to tap into something, and I'm going to tell you right now, there's an entire, at least within North American culture, there is an entire contingent of people that would argue till they are blue in the face and drop dead in front of you that keeping kids away from sexual content related to LGBTQ is wrong. I'm not making that argument. Look, I'm saying the argument is out there.
I understand the argument's out there. I'd be happy to argue with those people and let them asphyxiate themselves. Look, again, I'm not entirely sure I would be comfortable with any kind of overtly, I'd say that, kissing is overtly sexual, but you know what I mean? Like,
it is.
Yeah. Like, it's weird to say it that way, but it is. I mean, look, the kind of the right way to do this, and this is irrespective of alignment, of your orientation. If you're making a kids movie, you have to do the Woody and Bo Peep thing. Like, there's something here. There's clearly chemistry, and we leave it at that.
There is
and again, that's what you have to do when you're making a kids movie.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm just sitting here thinking, like, in terms of devil's advocacy about the push to normalize alternative lifestyles in all facets of media. And I don't totally disagree with that point of view, because this is, I go through, I work in a very conservative environment. I work with law enforcement, and they have a very conservative philosophical standpoint. And while they can be accepting, they still shy away from like a full embracing of normalization of things that they are in turn not tremendously comfortable with. They tend to have they tend to have thrown their hands up and have a live and let live approach to things, but you can tell there's still a lot of discomfort. And look, I'm not here to have that conversation. What I do want to say is I think from a larger philosophical standpoint, there is more to gain from normalization than not. And I say that because to keep things as strictly alternative begets a lot of prejudice. Prejudice then begets violence. And that is a very general statement that I've made, like Yoda. But and you could probably pick it apart with detailed arguments. But standing back from 100 yards, that's what I'm saying.
For the record, I absolutely could pick that apart, but I understand that you're making a very, very broad claim.
Yeah.
Consequently, it's not worth debating on that level in this instance. But my point is just, you decided to court this controversy.
Mm. Well, I think Disney needs to pick a side. Pick a side, Disney. Either go full on embracing LGBTQ and go get that Hollywood clout, and
accept that you're going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, and then take your punishment. Sorry, we're still living in the large portion of the known world is living in the 1950s. Fuck off, Disney.
Well,
live with it, Disney. That's not the way the world is going.
Dude, the backlash that they got over their presentation about their kids' content.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm a fairly conservative guy. I'm not political. I'm not affiliated with any political organization because I have a variety of reasons for that. But my general leaning is more right.
Sure.
Even I was surprised at the virulent backlash they got.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then I saw how they presented it. At that point, I had to throw my hands up in the air and go, Disney, what did you expect?
Yeah. What was it we were talking about maybe a show or two ago where we were discussing that people have lost faith in the Disney brand, that it's safe to put in front of their kids. And look, I haven't, but I also tend to be more progressive than conservative. I also play the Wu-Tang Clan in front of my kids, so I'm not a good judge, good person to base this on. Most people
look. 5 minutes ago, I said you should show your kid your 8-year-old Blazing Saddles, and
fair. My point is, the conversation was sort of revolving around the idea of the parent feeling safe to put their kid in front of something without having to worry about the content. It's the Patton Oswalt thing of, I got to get these towels in the wash. I need a screen to babysit my child. What's the safest thing? It used to be Disney. It's not anymore. And a lot of people are struggling with that. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole into, do we or do we not normalize?
Look, none of us are passing moral judgment on the state of reality at the moment.
No,
but that is reality.
But right. And now there's a conversation to be had about what does Disney, I think internally, when I say that, I think Disney has to figure out what its identity wants to be. Because I'll tell you who's not having this problem. The fucking people that run Illumination.
Look, you want to know here's the real problem Disney's having.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to serve the liberal Twitter mob in the United States.
Sure.
And also acknowledging that they can't be profitable without China, who is anything but.
Right. So, the last thing I want to say on this, because the money segment has gone way too long now. Yeah. We still have a whole other segment to do, and we're over.
Again,
this movie that should have been a 90-minute flat review is now going to go 3 hours because you and I can't shut the fuck up when we talk to each other.
Well, look, we talked again. I think that's a big thing that's going to hold Lightyear back, and it is kind of how we arrived at this discussion.
Yeah,
and that's just, again, I'm not passing moral judgment on either side of this particular argument. If you're not comfortable with your kids seeing that, fine, they're your kids. And I don't consider ruling on your children seeing Lightyear to rise to some standard of child abuse.
Well, that, and it's also not a civil rights thing either. That's it. Because again, we run in different circles, and I know a lot of people in the LGBTQI community, and they get so angry that people just won't accept the community as it is, love it as it is, expose their children to it, and just sort of move into the 21st century. They're just so mad about it. And they get frustrated that for every step that is taken in normalization, there are 2 steps back. For every victory they have, there's a don't say gay bill. And
that's not what that thing says.
Sorry, I don't know why Harry put this up here. Life is like a game show will now be seen on Friday. Okay.
We're going to be going until then.
Oh, yeah, sure. All right. Well, for Harry's sake, I guess we'll move on then.
So hang on. So the last thing I wanted to say about, again, busting at my prognosticator.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Lightyear hits $1 billion.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think it will be financially successful. I'm not calling bomb, but it's not going to get to $1 billion. I don't think Thor: Love and Thunder hits $1 billion.
I don't think so either. I think it's too niche of a film.
Again, it's going to be fine financially. Again, I'm not saying bomb.
No, I think it does between 5 and 750. I don't think it goes
somewhere
north
in
of
that range. Yeah, probably.
But I think I think you get the hardcore Marvel people, and I think you get the date, the date crowd that still think Marvel's a hip thing to go watch. I think you get the crowd that thinks Chris Hemsworth's a pretty man. I think you've lost the comic book people though with that one. The minute they decided to do Natalie Portman's Thor, that was the fucking end of that movie.
I don't think they fully appreciated the multiple hornet nests they walked into with that. I don't think they. I think they thought, hey, there's a femme Thor in the comics.
Yep.
Let's put her on screen. We can get Natalie Portman back because she'll work with Taika Waititi. We'll turn Thor into a peace-loving hippie and continue to have him do nothing in his own movies. We'll drench it in crappy music. It'll be very brightly colored. And we'll insinuate that Thor and Star-Lord are now a couple. And this will work.
Yeah. Yeah, this won't turn off your core fan base at all.
Yeah, I don't think that thing hits.
That said, I'm probably going to love it. I'll probably think it's my favorite movie. But you know me.
I expect to hate that movie.
Yep.
I really do.
Yep.
But I might not. Given my expecting to hate that movie is not just based on Taika Waititi being part of it. It's more the talking points that came out when they were doing the press tour and whatnot. When he was like, yeah, everyone loved the stupid humor in Ragnarok, so we're doing more of that.
Yeah, we're going to double down. All right.
No. Okay, last thing.
Oh, my God.
No, seriously, last thing, because it's the last thing of the year. I don't think Avatar 2 makes $1 billion.
We'll see.
I think
the reason why Avatar did as well as it did, and I talked about this with the Harry Potter thing, was disconnected, disaffected, untethered people finding the Avatar universe to be a place they wanted to live because they couldn't handle reality. If they can recreate that with an entirely new generation of disaffected Twitter people, it'll make its money. If they can't recreate that particular social psycho dynamic, then no.
Yeah, here's why I think that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many other ways to escape reality.
Yeah.
And we are, at least 10 years after the craze of the first one?
Mm-hmm.
So you're way past your sell-by date. You're entering into a completely different kind of, again, social climate. And you're competing against a bunch of other properties doing what you do, but with story.
Yeah.
I don't think I just, look, it's going to make money depending on how stupid the budget is. Like, well, as much as James Cameron is going to spend on that thing, maybe not. But I don't think that hits $1 billion. I just don't.
All right. With that said, and now we have the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
The critical review is brought to you by Grammarly. Grammarly's
that's about right.
Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. So download Grammarly today. Go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, it's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. And as you can see with your eyes, the critics gave it an 89%, relatively high. They didn't hate it, obviously. The audience probably didn't know what to do. They knew they were watching a good movie, but didn't quite know what to make of it. So they came in at 67 with 1,000+ verified ratings. A bloody revenge epic as breathtaking visual marvel. The Northman finds filmmaker Robert Eggers expanding his scope without sacrificing any of his signature style.
I would agree with that.
All right.
Oh, just for the record, this is utterly unrelated to anything, but as a guy who's been rereading Berserk, there's a couple of things in here that I couldn't help but notice the parallels.
All right. Joe Lipson of Horror Queers Podcast. Can I just now... Horror Queers Podcast? What do they got that we ain't got?
Well, Do I have to say it?
Listeners. God damn. I find that just to be insulting. How are we, an institution of the podcast universe, the Radulich Broadcasting Network, and we can't get on Rotten Tomatoes, but the Horror Queers podcast can?
We do not pander to a particular demographic to try and get our audience.
Fair enough. A sublime technical feat with no emotional core, says
Horror Queers
podcast. Eggers doesn't offer anything new or subversive to the Hamlet tale, including its discussion on masculinity. Skarsgård feels miscast, or perhaps Amleth is just boring, says the Horror Queers podcast, Joe Lipsett.
Okay, no one should be listening to this idiot.
Yeah.
If you can't appreciate the emotional core of this movie, you are disconnected from reality. Second, if your take on a film is, well, I really need subversive stuff in here, I weep for what you do. Like, that should never be what you want out of a film.
Tim Brayton of Alternate Ending. It's all very bleak and cruel and stylistically intoxicating.
This is not... I saw this again. I don't think this movie is nearly as bleak as most people seem to think. Like, it's cruel, yes. It was a very barbaric time in human history. That doesn't mean bleak, though. Those are not synonyms. I'm a little bit... Again, there's a lot of people who have arrived at that conclusion, and I thoroughly disagree.
Carl De Los Santos of Smash Cut Reviews. Where the movie goes south is in its narrative and characters. Beneath the twisting Scandinavian folklore is a simple and familiar revenge story that never gives us real reason to care.
I mean, apart from the fact that you're investing time into it, sure. Like, these people have no concept of what a good revenge story is. I think that's a lost art. Like that we talk a little bit on occasion about like genre types, types of stories that are a lost art. The coming of age story is a bit of a lost art.
Mm-hmm.
I think the revenge story is a little bit lost these days.
Susan Granger of SSG Syndicate. Savage, supernatural, and often silly. Robert Eggers' intense Nordic nightmare is filled with brawling, bloody brutality.
There's nothing silly about this movie.
That's why I read that one. I was like, this movie's a lot of things. Silly ain't one.
You know what it is with these people? I'm fairly convinced of this. These people are so steeped in their own metaphysical worldview that they refuse to accept that the magic sword only being drawn at night is not silly. No, that's part of the magic of the sword. They look at things that they cannot rationally explain and then have to go, well, that's silly. Rather than accepting that in this variation on reality, no, the gods are real. Magic's real. Right. Hey, guess what? Deal with it. And if you can't, because I believe in science, well, then your only conclusion is to think that something serious is something silly, and that's on you for not being able to adapt how you view media.
A few more of these, because in my world, it's after midnight. We got a late start tonight, and we went really, really long. But hey, Robert and I haven't had a chance to just talk one-on-one to each other, so this is kind of like a little catching up that we're doing here. People are gonna be like, what the fuck did they talk about for 2.5 hours? Everything. Life, the universe. A
little bit of everything, actually.
Yeah. It's good. You and I, I'm gonna look at you when I say this with longing in my eyes and lust in my heart.
I would rather at least one of those not be there.
You and I have not had a good Mark and Robert Gab session in a while.
That's true.
It's weird that it happened with this movie. Maybe not.
It could only happen with this movie.
I believe you, but I'm glad it happened. I think we needed it. I think we both needed it.
Okay. It might happen with the Black Phone too, but
yeah, we'll see. Anyway, Emily Wheeler of Emily Wheeler Movie Ops, a beautiful, bloody, empty shell.
There again. The people who are unwilling or unable to engage with the emotional core of this movie, that says so much about them as people. If you are not aware of the darkest impulses that exist within you and can be brought to bear, then you're going to look at this and go, well, I don't get it. He's just an angry rage monster swinging weapons, and that's not what this movie is. But you're also one of those people who thinks, well, there's no way I could have possibly joined the National Socialist Party if I were my age in Germany in the 1920s.
Oh, this
but
one's
you
good.
you would have.
Frank Wilkins of Real Reviews. Think you know what a Viking is? You have no idea.
How is that helpful? Like, he gave it a positive review. Like, he gave it a great score and everything. But why is that your burner? Like, why is that your stinger? Like, who thought that was the correct thing?
Thelma Adams of AARP Movies for Grown-Ups.
Oh, God. How does that exist?
I love reading those. Eggers miscast moody turn of the 10th century action adventure seems late to the Norse feast, despite, or perhaps because of its over-serious intentions.
I do not understand the miscasting argument here.
Neither do I.
Like
this one's even better. Piers Marchant of Arkansas Democrat Gazette. The film feels oddly flat, mitigated as it is by the cross purposes of its creator and the studio that backed it.
Okay, you're reading way too much into the backstory of this movie. No.
I want to find somebody who's like, my problem with this movie is not enough black folk.
You probably can't find... Well, hang on, there's Slate. That might do it. Or The New Yorker.
Richard Brody of New Yorker, top critic. Instead of the roots of Shakespeare's play, The Northman merely serves up its raw material both half-baked and overcooked. Wah, 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 wah.
You know, I'm not saying that it's inappropriate to draw comparisons between this and Hamlet. I'm really not. But you are really reaching if you expected this to be an adaptation of Hamlet. It is not.
One or two more, and then I think we're done here. Frank Switek of One Guy's Opinion, because of course. A visually entertaining evocation of a distant world, blending history and myth in a composite awash in bloodshed and butchery, yet strangely intoxicating even in its excesses. Yet dramatically, it leaves something to be desired.
Again, like, if you can't see the pure drama going on in certain scenes in this, I can't help you, man. You're a lost cause.
Come on, Kevin Carr, where are you?
He didn't go see it. Why would he?
Jeffrey Harris of 401mania.com.
Hey, Jeff.
The Northman is has he been on your show lately? Have you told him I keep reading his reviews?
If he listens, I think he listens to Damn You Hollywood on occasion. So,
okay.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. The Northman is an excellent, unflinching, and immersive vision from filmmaker Robert Eggers. I agree.
He's correct.
Good job, Jeff. You've gotten out of this review being unbeaten by me. Keep it up.
Boy, you couldn't find anyone that you normally point me at. You couldn't find any of my theoretical extended family.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at this point. I'm just looking for people. I'm not even looking at whether or not it's rotten or fresh.
At this point, I'm tempted to say let's go to the audience reviews because those idiots.
Jeff York of The Establishing Shot. More of Olga's strong character and less of the bellicose brutality of the male one.
Bent.
Jesus Christ. No, wait. This is okay. This is what we're ending with because I don't think it's getting any better than this. Jeff York of The Establishing Shot. Let me read the whole thing.
Okay.
More of Olga's strong character and less of the bellicose brutality of the male ones would have helped Eggers in his critique of toxic masculinity. Instead, his savaging of machismo is dampened by all the savagery he insists on splattering across the screen.
If you think this movie is about, I'll throw air quotes around this, toxic masculinity, you're an idiot. At what point did masculinity have Mark, have we ever had the market cornered on revenge? That ever been an exclusively male thing?
Hey, remember Pretty Young Woman or whatever, or whatever the hell the name of the movie was, where it's an entirely
Promising Young Woman?
That's the one about the revenge fantasy movie about the woman who, traps guys into thinking that they're getting to rape her and then they don't, and then it ends with her getting the rich guy arrested. That is the
worst rape and revenge fantasy story I've ever seen.
It's really awful. Bad, and it got nominated for an Oscar. Nominated for Best Picture,
as though the Oscars had any credibility left to burn. More importantly, again, you virtue signaling dickhead. Show me more of the strong female character. Why? Yeah, Olga's not a bad character. It's not me knocking the writing of that character or Anya Taylor-Joy's acting. None of it. Absolutely none of it.
And I look, the one thing I do agree with, yes, more of Anya Taylor-Joy's naked ass. But you were saying
you were just disappointed by the lack of frontal nudity.
You're not wrong.
You sad man.
Hang on. Screw you. It is not sad to be attracted to another person. I am attracted to her. She is an attractive gal.
It's a little bit sad to go into the movies featuring her going, boy, I sure hope I see boobs. When you
wait a minute. That's not why I went into that movie. Listen, Melissa, don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, let me rephrase.
Thank you.
You have the internet. Save yourself the aggravation of trying to get an actress to flash you.
Okay. All I was trying to say was if you're going to say you should put more of Anya Taylor-Joy on screen, you should, because you could see more of her naked body. That was.
But he couldn't say that, because then he's not virtue signaling that I like strong. Please step on me. Like that. That's all he's saying right there.
I like strong female characters that don't need no man in Viking times.
It's so stupid.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to see if there's one that's going to get any better than that. And I'm not seeing any of our good people, and I'm not seeing anything. I don't know. Mike Massey gone with the twins. Fucking hate you people.
This amuses me to no end. That it's the outlets or the websites that some of these people that Mark goes, how are you here?
Yeah. There's mild satisfaction to be found in some of the destructive confrontations, with plenty of dawdling via bewildering rites and rituals that eat up screen time, sapping opportunities for more thrilling Viking exploits. Because God forbid we create a world for your audience to live in. Peter DeBruge of Variety.
There we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Load up the guns, Robert.
You're right for that. You're right for glorified toilet paper, sir.
Peter DeBruge of Variety, top critic. It's ultimately rather dull and hardly fun. Variety, everybody.
The supreme arbiters of fun and the espousers of the belief that film exists only to be fun. And if you don't agree with their definition of fun, well, screw you. You're probably an istophobe.
All right, next week.
Just go play in traffic. Seriously.
Next week's Damn You Hollywood's going to be loaded. We're going to have Ethan and Damien, I believe, from Talk the Keki, along with David Wright. So they'll actually be, for the first time on Damn You Hollywood, I think ever. We'll have 5 people on if everyone shows up. And we're going to be doing a split one. Bubble and Bell. Bell will actually be PVOD on the day that we're doing this. But David said he actually had already seen it in the movie, so he's already on board here. But that's May 3rd. Bubble will have just been on Netflix the prior Friday, and Bell will be PVOD Tuesday the 3rd, and we will be reviewing both at night. That's Damn You Hollywood for May 3rd. May 10th is Doctor Strange, and it'll be the same for Marvel idiots that are always on these shows. Myself, David, Alexis, and Robert. And I'm sure that will also go over 2.5 hours, because fuck my life.
But Mark, don't you understand? We have to talk about all the X-Men and all the fan theory.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm changing the subtitle of this movie. It's now Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Fan Service.
So that's for you, by the way.
You're welcome. I've got a few specific insults I'm saving for when we find a few different guys. Like I've got a few that I'm still saving that should be a little bit less vulgar. So you, because of your own mental health issues and feelings of disengagement, untetheredness with the world, walked off the podcast of the Batman momentarily because I said I liked a movie. Hang on. Okay, stop, strike, rewind. I did a bit. Okay. Look. I knew you and Andrew wanted to gush.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had no place in that because I was not going to gush about the movie. I was not going to contribute anything meaningful. So I can sit here looking like an idiot, or I can do a bit.
Yeah.
Might as well do a bit.
You did a bit. That's fine. I may be the one doing a bit on Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Because David will be okay. Alexis, God bless her, is one of those people who likes, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's just not my thing. Alexis is going to be one of those people who's going to want to bathe in the fan theory. And that's going to be all she's going to want to talk about. And she's going to want to, and like Ghostbusters, she's going to want to talk about how excited she was with all the, cameo appearances. It's going to make me want to eat a gun. But because I don't want to go through the hard feelings that Ghostbusters produced at the time, I may just have to do you and go, I'm going to get a sandwich and go and just walk off the podcast.
Look, the reason that worked for me is because these are wireless. So while you did have to mute me briefly, I could hear you the whole time. So as soon as you and Andrew were like, well, if Robert ever shows back up, we can start the show, I was back here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Doctor Strange. I'm not in the same mental place I was with Ghostbusters, so I don't think it'll be that bad. But I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to struggle with that show.
You know, the fact that you and I have both, for very different reasons, become as disenfranchised with the MCU as we are should say a lot about that property. It
really should. Anyway, finishing up the month of May, we've got Firestarter on the 17th. Downton Abbey is just going to be me and I think David. I think you're sitting out that one, yeah?
You do not want me on that show. Right,
so that'll just be me and David, and I think my wife. My wife allegedly is threatening to do that show too. We'll see what happens. She may have a date that night. Who the hell knows? Oops. Anyway, the other one is Everything Everywhere All at Once and After Yang, and that'll be May 31st. So that's all the damn you Hollywood coming up. As far as what we're doing this week, no show yesterday. Evan, Superblock Team Up got postponed. Evan had to cancel because he had troubles. So there was no show Monday night, but we did have a re-airing of our Huntsman, The Winter's War review that I got to listen to, which was fun. The thing itself was fun. Tomorrow...
Well, look, us tearing that thing apart was a good time.
Tomorrow we have Lordy, Spooky, Sextravaganza, Spectacular, and then Thursday is myself and Patrick Mullen talking about How I Met Your Father. A show so dumb even my wife didn't like it.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a t-shirt, Dan. April 29th, there's going to be an Unspoken Issues for Daredevil 321. And then Saturday, we have our Trip Trivia for Wizards and Magic. And then in the evening time, myself and Dan Lasby will be doing Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson. So that's what I got. Robert, what do you got?
I got 2-1 that Mark winds up canceling Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson live commentary.
I'm not going to the sex club that night. We should be fine.
You say that now.
Good point.
Again, you've been pulling back on a lot of those, and that's an easy one to pass. That's all I'm saying.
My thing that I'm going to with Melissa is from 7 to I think 9, 7 to 10. If so, unless like people are like, come on, let's take the party elsewhere. I'm coming home and I'm doing the fight. That's my plan.
All right.
We'll see what happens. I promise nothing. I'm still apologizing to Dan about the Errol Spence fight, which I have not watched.
Good fight.
Spent $80 on it.
If you spent the money, you really should watch it.
I'm gonna try. I'm busy these days, sir.
You are. Tell you what, next time you hop on a stationary bike or whatnot, you should just have it on your tablet.
Fair enough.
All right, as for myself, I cover professional wrestling and mixed martial arts for 411mania.com. AEW's Dark Elevation on Monday. MLW stuff on Wednesday/Thursday. It's going to be Thursday this week. And WWE SmackDown on Friday. So feel free to come by and get my opinions on professional wrestling if you're so inclined. This week for MLW, it's actually their named event. We're getting intimidation games, so it's a hastily thrown together triple threat for the World Heavyweight title because, well, the Parks got fired, so we can't get Jacob Fatu versus LA Park again. Not a joke. All three of them got the axe for apparently they got a little bit too stiff.
Really?
Yeah. No joke. Like they did a run-in at one point on something and got stiff with Fatu and Hammerstone.
Okay.
And the people in charge weren't having it, so LA Park, EO Day LA Park, and LA Park Jr., they are gone from MLW.
All right.
So I will be covering Intimidation games on Thursday. Should be a good time. And I cover the UFC events on Saturday. So this last Saturday was UFC on ESPN Plus 63. Not a great card on paper. Produced some very good finishes. We were overdue for one of those. This week will be UFC on ESPN 30 thing. 35. Headlined by Rob Font versus Marlon Vera. It's a darn good bantamweight fight. If you want my full thoughts on that card in its entirety, please check out the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I record that Sunday evening, so late Sunday evening or Monday morning, the dulcet tones of me talking about combat sports can get you into work in the morning if that is something you're interested in.
All right, folks, thank you for listening to Robert and I embrace each other once more and spend at least 20 minutes talking about the Northman.
We spent a fair chunk of time talking about it.
This is 2 hours and 35 minutes.
We're longer than the movie. You know how long we have not had a review go longer than the movie for at least 4 weeks. I'm proud of us.
Yeah. I think we needed this. We needed to reconnect. I have felt disconnected from you, and I feel like tonight we work towards reconnecting with each other.
The Northman was the equivalent of the Sucks Club.
It's not getting any better than that. Good night, everybody.